soldiers of a broken world. With data balance, let your rage unfurl. Stand against tyranny that's deep and old. Power to the people, hearts burning bold. False promises and corrupt schemes. Rip the veil off the deadly dreams. No more silence, no more deceit. We'll take back the ground beneath our feet. Oligarchs with the greedy hands tight. Central base fueling our night's light. New world order creeping in disguise. We see through the facade and all their lies. Burn all their lies. Break right through. Break right through. Rise up, soldiers of a broken world. With tattered banners, let your rage unfurl. Stand against tyranny that's deep and old. Power to the people, hearts burning bold. False promises and corrupt schemes. Rip the veil off the deadly dreams. No more silence, no more deceit. We'll take back the ground beneath our feet.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Burn the Corporate Fiction on this lovely Wednesday evening or afternoon or morning, depending on where you're tuning in from or when you're watching the replay. Edge of Darkness. So I'd been sitting here thinking the last couple days about especially coming across some videos are resurfacing from the last 5 years. And I mean, that stuff was wild, right? I want to get into some of that stuff tonight because I believe people really do not appreciate how close they actually were to just closing the trap and locking you into a legal entity identification forever in a digital prison under an unelected tribunal of oligarchs. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into exactly who is controlling all of these things at the tippy top. I'm pretty sure most of my subscribers already know, and the jurists definitely know. It's the same office that basically claimed the entire world in trust back in, 1308, I want to say, whenever the Unum Sanctum. But anyway, before we get into all that, I have backstage Deb, a fellow jurist, or Adorable as she goes by on YouTube. How are you doing tonight, Deb?
Hey.
You there? Hey. Okay.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep. That way you can just say hi to everybody. But all right. So the first thing I want to get into is just kind of the very nature of the system that they're designing, which is what I always talk to you guys about, and how important it is to realize, because you've accepted these things as normal for so long that, you just have an ID. Show me your ID, right? Show me your ID. Give me your ID. It's an invisible prison. It truly is, made of thoughts. The bars are your thoughts and your beliefs, that you actually believe that all of these statutes and codes have authority. And they do, unless you know why they do not. If you're under contract and you don't know how to explain that contract is actually a violation of natural law and is technically enslavement, then you are subject to the contract. And that's all any court is ever going to want to hear as they exist today, these courts of equity and nisi prius courts, right? They're only going to want to determine whether or not the contract is being enforced or not. So let me say hi to a few of you that have rolled in here so far, and then I'm sure we'll end up with more. We've got a lot of jurists. Living American, you just became a fellow jurist. Email me at burnthecorporatefiction.com with your email so I can give you the Jurist Society mega folder link. It has a ton of treaties, all of our templates, common law actions, and pretty much everything that we use on at our meetings on Sundays. Books on trust laws, and we're going to go through some of the stuff that's in the folder tonight. Same thing if you are watching and you just became a fellow jurist, please go ahead and email me at burnthecorporatefiction@yahoo.com and we can take care of that. So, but we have Brad and Tasha, one or both of them, as my dad likes to say. Good to see you. We got Jeff, fellow jurist. Good to see you, brother, as always. We got Debs up here with me. We got Fozzie Foster was the first commenter, and he said he probably won't be able to watch this till tomorrow because it's like 2:30 where he's at right now. So we got Hold the Line. It's good to see you, Eddie. Freedom by Truth. I believe that's a newer subscriber. Good to see you, brother. Scott NYC, FE Nation. Hopefully I got everybody. All right. So very interesting thing. Ron DeSantis is actually talking about property tax. And let's watch this for a second, and then we're going to get into it. And how you shouldn't have to pay property tax. That's actually always just been common sense to me. You know, like how do I own it if I continue to pay for it? Well, now he's just blatantly saying the obvious. And it always makes you wonder what's the angle, right? Because you know they're not about to give you your actual property rights back or get rid of this feudal, neo-feudal system they've created. At least I don't think that they would. Maybe. I don't know. But let's take a look and tell me what you guys think.
Their citizens to higher taxes, such as higher property taxes to pay for these spending habits. And you know, these property taxes, it's like you buy a home, you buy land, you know, maybe you buy the home outright, but maybe you pay off a mortgage over 30 years. And then, okay, you've paid off the mortgage, you bought the land, you've been taxed many times. It's like, is it your property or not? Just for being on your property, you got to write a check to the government every year. So you're basically paying rent to the government to live on your own property. And our homestead exemption is not strong enough.
You're not basically paying rent. You are paying rent. You're actually paying a feudal fee. You're paying a fee to a lord. Absolutely, that's what you're doing. That is the system of law that was created under the reign of William the Conqueror and carried forward all the way up until today. It's actually just been one big battle between common law and Roman civil law, which generally takes the form of some type of feudal tenure, whether it be absolute despotic communism or what we have here today, which I like to call communism light, where basically the counties and corporations, well, they're all corporations, they're all feudal lords. They control the property, hold the property, superior interest in the property, the security interest in the property, rather, right? Because everything's been mortgaged to secure the public debt. March 9th, 1933, as we go into all the time. And so they're controlling it. They're giving you the right to use it, but you have to use it the way that they tell you because they have the superior interest. So you're absolutely paying rent. You're paying a fee.
To help these folks because the property gets assessed so high. And that's the thing. If you buy a home for $300,000 and you know there's certain tax, well, then what? And they say it's worth $700,000. And so, and they say, you know, there's homestead stuff that helps protect you to a certain extent, but you're paying more. And a lot of people can't afford that. So I think that that's a big issue. And I know we're going to be really looking at ways to bring people relief from that, because I think it's been really something that's pinching a lot of homeowners, particularly seniors on fixed income. We don't control this. You know, we've not allowed any.
Yeah, that cut out for a second. It's awesome. Hold on.
Because the property is being assessed higher and higher.
So,
and the reality
so
is
think about what he's saying, and he's absolutely right, which is why anybody so are you free? Yeah, this is a free country. We're free. It's a democracy. It's ruled by the people. Is it? Okay. Can you own property? Well, of course I can own property. No. Can you own real valuable property? or personal property that's significant, like a car, right? Can you own these things? Well, yeah, I own them. Okay, do you pay somebody to use them every year? Well, yeah. What happens if you don't pay? Well, they get taken. So no, you don't own them. And now what he's talking about when it comes to the land is that they're capable of assessing the property value, continuing to raise the assessment of the property value as currency becomes inflated under the central banking system, to the point where technically they can arbitrarily gentrify an area and kick anyone out they want. They can literally, how do I word this? They can reshape the geopolitical landscape of any area, the rich and poor ratio, and just by pulling certain economic levers, causing certain less desirable people to move into a higher income area, and then, you know what I mean, causing all the values to go down. They can buy up that whole area real quick for real cheap once it's gotten ghetto, and then, you know what I mean, and then gentrify it and raise everything back up. This is how these are the economic levers. These guys are brilliant, right? That's why this common law republic, your absolute right to property, as the Wisconsin Constitution says, that all lands are allodial and feudal tenures are prohibited. Well, that's what he's talking about with the Homestead Act. So because constitutionally and at common law, these feudal tenures were prohibited here in the States, what they did was they're like, okay, well, we're only going to create feudal tenures for foreigners who come to our land to do business temporarily, right? Or whatever. And that's a resident. And then so they started giving people who are actual, people of the state homestead exemptions from the new property tax assessment that they introduced right around the same time as the Civil War to pay for the war and all that, or that was the justification. So anyway,
home is worth until someone offers you money and is willing to pull the trigger on a sale. That's how a market works. You can say it's worth this much, but if no one's willing to come and offer you that much, then why should you pay taxes on that amount? And so there's a lot of things that need to be done with that. But as part of our...
So right there, that's that lawyery obfuscation. Now, there's only one thing that needs to be done. Take away the 14th Amendment or get rid of the central bank. That's it. You take away the 14th Amendment and their whole Jenga tower just collapses, right? Because they can only charge property tax on a 14th Amendment infant who can't hold title to property. So they're under guardianship and they only have usufructory or equitable rights in all of their property and land and real estate, right? So that's, but he's not going to say that. Oh no, he ain't going to say that. He's going to be, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. We got to figure out how to make you guys happy so you don't string us up, while simultaneously not giving you any property rights back. That's what we got to do here. That's what he's really saying.
DOGE initiative, our state task force will look into local government expenditures by utilizing publicly.
So I will say, though, glass half full, to be positive, it is a step in the right direction, in my opinion. So the reason I brought that clip up is because I want to go into the origin of law, as usual, just as a base in case somebody's new here, before we get into the last 5 years and the New World Order that's still trying to test the fences and take us down from the inside out. So this is a big problem, right? I bring this up because it tells you about property taxes, how you cannot actually own real property. In order for you to be sovereign, or for you to be not under the public policy, you have to be in the private, okay? But when something is owned or controlled by the public, say like through county tax assessment, they can say it's private all they want, but it really belongs to the public at that point in time. And you can't claim to be in the private. You can't claim this is private property. The government has no business here, unwarranted business here, unless I went out into public and committed a crime. If I went out into public and committed a crime, then you can come onto my private property with a warrant that must be signed and sworn by affidavit, right, with competent witnesses. And then you can take me before a magistrate, okay, and determine whether or not I should, even whether there was a crime committed at all. And so without that ability, there's no possible way you can ever get out from under the government's thumb. It's all about your relationship to your property, right? So let me share this window. We're just going to go over a few documents and then we're going to get into the last 5 years. You got anything on that, Deb?
Nope.
Okay.
I just hate property taxes. That's all I know, and trying to get out of it, which I can't get out of mine here and where I'm selling my house. That's why I'm selling it, because I have HOA. So you had mentioned in the membership that, kind of if you're in an HOA, you're sort of screwed that way.
Well, it's just a lot more difficult. Yeah, you have to be able to get the title to the property. You have to be able to get to you have to have the superior interest in whatever they're trying, because all law outside of common law, outside of violating somebody's free will, is merely the regulation of property that's under administration. That's the only way they can create their own law. The only way man can create law is by regulating commerce and administrating other people's property. That's the only way they can make their own law. That's what we call statutes, codes, canons, rules, right? Decrees, that all that stuff that's made up by man, you have to be under that man or woman's will in order for that to apply to you. And the only way that can happen is if they have a superior interest in your estate, right? So, and again,
Right.
like it's everybody, everyone has an estate. If you're new to the channel, everyone has an estate, from the wealthiest guy who lives in a big 80-acre manor with golf course and all that shit, right? That's an estate. That's what you think of when you hear the word estate. But the homeless guy in the corner also has an estate. His ability to labor, his personality, and what little property he may have comprise his estate. His soul comprises, his will comprises his estate, because property is just the ultimate realization of your will. So to give you a little preview of like why this is happening and what's going on, what we're going to get into tonight, this is interesting. I just came across this thanks to you, Jeff. You sent me that little WordPress on the papal bulls, and in there, I'd never heard about this case before, but they actually introduced the doctrine of discovery into American jurisprudence. Now, do you know what the doctrine of discovery is, Deb?
I don't.
The doctrine of discovery was one of those triple crown papal bulls that created the trifecta of their control system, financial, military, and property wise, right? So it's basically all real estate, all wealth, right? And dominion over everyone's souls. And it was through the doctrine of discovery, it was one of the papal bulls where they basically said Christian nations as the most developed and here, we'll just look at it real quick. So this is the attitude, is basically anyone who's a heathen or a heretic, right? Say like the Native Americans or the, just all the Native Americans, because you can go through whether they're the Iroquois or the Aztecs or whoever, those were all, who were here when the Europeans came over. So, and I don't get into all that. There is lawful conquest, and I'm not saying, give them back their land, none of that stuff. Hey, what's going on, Roger? I see you over there, man. So in Peg's place, good to see you. Good to see you. I just saw your comment too. So I don't get into all that, like you're on stolen land and all that, but there is a certain aspect of this, right, where that's what makes it hard to get out from. That's why we have the Bill of Rights. Okay. So basically the Pope's like, you start with unum sanctum, and he's like, everyone in the whole world is subject to me for salvation, right? Because I'm the vicar of Christ. I hold the world in trust. What unum sanctum did was, and we talk about trust a lot, especially in the Jurist Society, that created the first world trust. Okay. And basically the Pope says that for the salvation, since Jesus is the one true Lord and his Father's the one true God, then we have the absolute right to subject everyone to us, because we hold the world in trust for God and for Christ, and it's absolutely necessary for their salvation. That's the logic behind it, and they really believe this, and they're actually very, very successful and very close to finishing what they've started way back in 1066. They're very, very close to finishing it. So when we look at and this judge is actually pretty solid. His name's it's Chief Justice Marshall, right? And a lot of his opinions are very, very good. He was a solid judge, in my opinion. but even he finds this is kind of how it works. He says a title to lands under grants to private individuals made by Indian tribes or nations northwest of the River Ohio in 1773 and 1775 cannot be recognized in the courts of the United States. Discovery, look at this, it's crazy. They're introducing the Roman papal bull, the doctrine of discovery, right? Discovery, the original foundation of titles to land on the American continent as between the different European nations by whom conquests and settlements were made there. So there's all these Catholic nations, Spain, Italy, England, Spain, right? All these European countries that were under the Pope, all princes at international law, because the Pope is the supreme pontiff. But they're kings in their respective countries, but they're just princes under the Pope, and it still exists that way today. That's how that works. When you read the Treaty of Paris after the Revolutionary War, they say this is Prince George III, King of Great Britain, Duke of yada yada, and all the fancy titles and stuff. So basically, what they're saying is since the original foundation of titles to land on the American continent as between the different European nations by whom conquests and settlements were made here. So they're saying that because the land was conquered, settled, and patented by the government under the doctrine of discovery originally back when it was a colonial government and not a sovereign national government, that the land goes all the way back to that original ownership. And so they can't recognize, so if you're a private individual and you got Native American, we actually had, was that you, Deb? No. Was that you, the one that's on Native American land?
Yeah, reservation, yeah.
Yep, yeah, okay, it was you, yeah. So, exactly. This kind of answers that question for me. Anyways, I never knew about this. I knew that they were implementing the doctrine of discovery here because it's obvious. They're doing it through the Bar Association, the Inns of Court, which are in the old Templar Church, all controlled by the pontiff who thinks he owns and controls everything, or holds everything in trust and controls everything. And so he's been working through his attorneys, right? He's been working through the attorneys, which are not. So you think the Crown Corporation, like the Crown Corporation's under the king, but it's not, right? Or the queen back when she was that's not. The Crown Corporation's under the papacy, under the church, right? Under a whole network of legal work and very hard to follow paper trail, but it is, right? And it's evident when you see what's being done or why the judges are ruled by canons, right? And all that stuff. So this is what we're going to end up getting to, is this whole interesting situation. But before we do, I wanted to take a look at, where did I pull this up? So this right here, and we go through this all the time, the American Law of Administration, right? Treatise on the American Law of Administration by J.G. Warner. This is in the Jurist Society folder, by the way. Wait, well, Scott said you watched a documentary about the Doomsday Book and found your family name in the book. That's actually pretty cool, honestly. I mean, probably not cool that they had to give up their property, but it's cool piece of history, man, for sure. So, of property in general, right? Of the nature of property and the principle in determining its devolution. This is J.G. Warner. I believe it's 1895, back when there was, common law was still known commonly. My property is that which is mine. That only is mine, which I acquire, hold, and dispose of by my will. So that means if you have to get permission to dispose of your property, or you have to have permission to hold or use your property, and dispose means to just, if you sell it, if you throw it away, if you just destroy it, that's disposal, right? So when a court says, oh, the case has already been disposed, that means they've already sold the securities and everything's been locked in, and now you're on the hook, right? So that only is mine, which I acquire, hold, and dispose of by my will. It is my will which determines the acquisition of a thing by me, whether originally by reducing it to possession, and thus making my property that which was no one's property before, or by contract, by which a thing becomes mine through the concurrence of my will with the will of another. So think about that, right? Or the will of its former owner. since I cannot rightfully acquire the property of another without his consent, that is, without his free will, it's obvious that the will of the original owner is a necessary element in my ownership, and that the ownership of anyone who may lawfully acquire it after me and remains operative until the property has lost its character. So what are we gathering here? It's will. Okay, that's why you have a last will that determines the devolution of your property, who gets your property, the descent of your property, and that's how you keep your family free, is making sure you're competent. It was actually considered a crime at many points in history to not have a will and deprive your family of your lands and property and just leave it open to the vultures. It was considered a crime to not leave, what do they call it, an endowment or something like that for the wife. She was entitled to a portion of the estate, irregardless of what creditors had claims to. She was entitled to that because, you know, she had to be taken care of. She couldn't end up homeless or without land or any of that stuff because her husband passed. So, and that's just how it was and how it should be, right? So we're learning that will, right? And now this is what's interesting, and I have to find it real quick. This is interesting. Okay, so I hold or use a thing right here. I hold or use a thing which is mine at will. Matter is unfree, i.e., it has no will. It does not belong to itself. Neither right nor duty can be predicated of a mere thing. Its quality is to offer resistance, whether it's even just bending over and picking up a stick to have a walking stick. It offered resistance. You had to labor to make that stick yours to be able to use it, right? And that's how it says right here. He says, it is therefore negative to my will. My will, in realizing itself, overcomes this resistance and subjects the thing to its purposes, changing its form, destroying, consuming it. That which is mine is thus a part of my personality, of me, insofar as its end and purpose of existence is a satisfaction, the realization of my will, and to serve it for its purposes as my bodily limbs serve me. Will, then, is the essence of property. Without it, there is none. And all law regards property. So all law is really about whether or not you have free will or you're capable of having free will, right? And so, because down here, and I always have trouble finding exactly where he puts it, but he says that the sphere of the law is the spiritual because it works upon and through the will alone. And right here, so it says, for the sphere of the law is the spiritual. It operates upon and through the will alone. Thus, the law recognizes in the property of a deceased person his free will, that is, his rational will, and enforces it. Right? So this is where you start to get into like, okay, there's more than just being like mentally competent, not crazy, to being able to exert your will. You also can't be a heathen, is how this works, right? You can't be degenerate, right? Can't be a savage. You have to be civilized in order to be part of society at common law and actually hold absolute title to the property. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I found something interesting. I was looking at Pope Honorius, right? He actually wrote a medieval dark magic grimoire. I'm not kidding. I have it, actually. Maybe I'll pull it up at some point, but not right now. It's called the Great Grimoire of Honorius the First, right? Pope Honorius. So he was Pope. He was known for his controversial role in the monothelite controversy and his posthumous condemnation as a heretic. Now, look, this is why they labeled him the heretic, not because of the black magic and supposedly, though I haven't found it in the book yet, and I'm doing the word find. That's where he admits that they write papal bulls on skin of younger. You guys get what I'm getting at, right? So. And it's actually a form of black magic, and that this was a common thing, like amongst those. The thing you sent me, Jeff, which I've been able to verify quite a bit of it, and we'll probably bring it up in a little bit after we get through all the going down memory lane of how close we came to this actually coming to fruition completely. But anyway, so his condemnation was because of this. Where is he at? Hold on. Theological. There it is. The monothelite controversy which debated whether Christ had one will or two, human and divine. Honorius's response to this issue, which seemed to endorse the idea of a single will in Christ, led to significant theological and then, of course, lawful disputes. Obviously, that would have been a big deal because the sphere of the law is the spiritual and it works upon and through the will alone. And when all common law is based on Mosaic law and English common law is based on Mosaic law in the New Testament, right? Basically, equity is like the merciful Christ aspect of law. It's not law. It's supposed to be merciful, like complementing the strict rigidity of common law, the black and white, not taking any mitigating circumstances into consideration. Did you do the crime? Did you violate somebody's free will and hurt them? Then you're guilty, right? So I find that interesting. And then so back to the American law of administration, there was another thing I wanted to show you guys. So this is the incapacity of idiots. An idiot is said to be a person wholly destitute of the reasoning faculty, unable to compare two ideas together, and utterly incapacitated for the transaction of any business. It says early writers laid down very narrow tests of idiocy, such as the inability to count to 20 pence, to tell father or mother or how old he is. Blackstone lays down the same rule nearly 2 centuries afterward. And Lord Hardwicke said that the term non compos mentis imports not weakness of understanding, but a total deprivation of reason. Now, this is what happened. In later years, courts of equity, both in England and America, as the jurists in here well know, and I'm sure most others, have taken jurisdiction of persons who had become from any cause so weak and incapacitated in mind as to be unable to manage their affairs and place them under guardianship. Now, no offense, but that's pretty much everybody in the Republic right now. They have no idea how to manage their own affairs. If you were to operate as a real property owner, an actual property owner, and an actual sovereign, and conduct yourself both know how to operate in the private and when it was necessary in the public, right? But remaining in the private as much as possible. Nobody has any idea how to do that. They don't even know how to evaluate things. There's an example where the WNBA lately, right, is asking for more money. That's insane. They don't make any money. Okay. It's not because you're women. It's because you don't draw crowds. You just don't. Right? They're just not, it's just a thing. So the NBA subsidizes them at a loss as it is. And these people and how many other people are so pissed off by that they don't actually realize the value to payment ratio. And that is an example of incompetency. You could not manage your affairs. You have no idea how to even evaluate what you're contributing to a business enterprise. So, all right, hopefully I've laid down enough groundwork for you guys. Let's get into some crazy kind of interesting stuff here. So I don't know what they're going to let me show and what they're not, so we're just going to shoot for it. Oh, I got to actually show the original window. So last 5 years, right? So we ended up in this situation. Yeah, there we go. We'll start with her. We ended up in this situation where they started making their final moves. Now, I personally don't know whether it was an absolute final push for for complete totalitarianism, or if it was just testing the fences, and maybe they needed that to see what happens when they did this mass psychological operation on everybody with the COOF, and then seeing how everybody responded. Maybe they were using AI to see how long people would be compliant. I firmly believe they're using AI right now combined with social media data analytics, right? AI data analytics to basically create war game scenarios of the best way to disarm us and take us down from the inside out. That's my personal opinion. But who remembers this crazy stuff here? Look at this. Oops.
It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound. Pondering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's or
Yeah, it's so freaking annoying. That's about all I can do with that. But that was the disinformation minister. You guys remember we had a disinformation minister? You remember that, Deb?
I really don't.
No.
Actually, I don't think I've seen that lady.
You don't think you've seen her? You don't remember when the Department of Homeland Security under Alejandro Mayorkas created the, yeah, Brad and Tasha says they remember this nut job. They created the disinformation board. And so basically what they were planning on doing was creating a whole bunch of regulatory policy about what you could and could not say, probably to start with on social media, right? Without just getting kicked off. But then that was meant to do what they're doing in England right now, where you can get 20 months in prison for a Facebook post. That's real. Anybody can look those, but you can do 2 years in prison over in England right now for a Facebook post. All right. They're arresting people left and right. Now, the difference between us and England, which is why they have to make us believe that they respect our First and Second Amendment rights, or just the Bill of Rights in general. They have to pretend like they do because we have the First and Second Amendment, primarily the Second Amendment. Okay, and they don't even know how many of those are in this country. So what happened with her was she started her little disinformation garbage and was like, oh, it's misinformation is harmful and it's dangerous and it could cause, people to, not be alive anymore and all that stuff. And then she's going through all this. Well, she got so much blowback from, X and or if it was Twitter then or not, I don't remember, but it was X and Facebook, and people were just dogging her. They're like, listen, we will never, ever, ever submit to that. Well, that's where I think the data analytics come in, because they shut that right down. And then they called her a victim of misinformation. That's actually the story about that, is like the misinformation minister is herself a victim of misinformation, and people are lying about her and saying that she's a foreign agent and all this. And when she really is she had to register as a foreign agent after this whole situation. So, yeah, that was a close call, right? And who remembers? I wonder if I can play this. Is insane too.
It's vaccination day. It's vaccination day. Appointments are open. I'm group 4. I don't have to stay here anymore. I'm sick of it.
To me, this should be criminal at this point, right?
I totally remember that.
You remember this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. Right. And then all the dancing nurses and all that
Oh
crazy
my
stuff,
God.
right?
So crazy.
Oh, look at this. Son of Enos. Is that for real? So just got arrested in Canada for anti-Semitism and hate speech for making videos exposing the tiny hat's evil acts against us. He's facing 2 years in prison. Wow. And that's right to the north of us. That's how close we came. And what happened was most people were so apathetic to the way that government, they were so used to the government just doing whatever it wants and it controls everything. And they had built this invisible prison in your mind of belief systems where you think, that these people actually have the authority to tell you how to use your property, because that's just the way it's always been. I mean, as soon as you're born, they shove you in a class, or not as soon as you're born, but as soon as you're 5 years old enough to, think and speak, they shove you in a classroom and start programming you, right? Programming you to obey, raise your hand, ask permission to use the bathroom, repeat what I just said. No, don't come up with your own ideas. Repeat what I just said. Otherwise, you're going to fail the test. Okay. I don't care if you think that the Civil War was about something different. You repeat what we told you it was about, or you're going to fail the test. And it's not like an essay exam, especially these days. It's just multiple choice. So really, you could just randomly bubble in. They want people stupid and they want you programmed. So that's immediately what they do. Then you got the television is programming all these subtle concepts of authoritarianism and accepting it, right? Like Paw Patrol. My daughter loves Paw Patrol. But literally, you're accepting these municipal services are the only thing that can help and save people. And that's what like a child is being programmed with when they're watching that stuff, right? Like that you need the government to help you when you're in trouble. And they start off early. And then I also like Coco Melon, right? That other show. The funny thing about that, on a side note, is they always do dinosaur and space videos right next to each other. I noticed that on the Coco Melon episodes. If they have dinosaurs, then you know the next video is going to be space. And if they have space, you know the next video is going to be dinosaurs. If you don't believe me, check it out. It's actually true. But anyway, so you got the television programming, and then you've got also the natural desire to conform, which is what we witnessed here during this point in time. In the last 5 years, is people didn't want to be the odd one out, except for people like us who are just like, F all of you guys. We don't, you know what I mean? We don't, I like to not conform to you sheep, actually. So, but that's a big part of it. You don't want to be seen as the crazy conspiracy theorist. I had a cousin of mine back before 2020. He used to tell me I was crazy all the time. He's like, dude, you're nuts. He's like, you're always talking about that stuff. You're always looking into it. And it's crazy, dude. You're telling me you think there's a group of people that are trying to take over the world. And so I showed him the All News is Scripted video. And I'm like, look at this. And it shows all these different news channels that are different networks and everything saying the same exact thing at the same exact time. I'm sure many of you have seen it by now. And he just looks at it. And this is how deeply asleep people were. He just looks at the video and goes, okay, that was pretty weird, but come on, man. Come on. That's not really actually happening. And that's what he was saying. So what I'm trying to determine is if the last 5 years did not go the way that they wanted it to, or it went exactly the way that they wanted to. I'm not sure, right? Because it doesn't seem like it went the way that they wanted to. What ended up happening was after 2020, my cousin called me out of the blue and said, Ryan, I wanted to apologize to you. You're right. And there really is a group of people trying to take over the world. I just spent the last however many years in my house, right? So, yeah, there is, this is crazy. Never thought this would happen. And that's happened to so many people. And now people are waking up at such a rapid rate, right? Just generally, people are waking up so rapidly. And it's because of that initial event. And it's almost like when you think about it, the esotericism of it, 2020, real vision, right? True vision, 2020 vision. And it was at that point in time that once 2020 kicked off, that people began to see, holy shit, right? We need to actually we need to have a concern in what our government's doing, right? And we have to understand that our government is not here to protect us, that they will absolutely destroy us for despotism, to be despots for their own financial gain and the ability to control people. What is it in man? Right? And I mean mankind in general. What is it in man that drives them to want to control other men? What is that? And I mean mankind, right? So men and women. What is that? Why? Like me personally, I just want to be left the hell alone. I want to live my life, take care of my family, raise my kids, and be left alone. I don't want to have to pay you for permission to use my property or use my property in the way that you're telling me to. Okay? So, what is that in men and women, right? But so 2020, it gave people like perfect vision, and now they're waking up rapidly. And so the position that we find ourselves in now is they're like testing the fences, right? I remember the day that the coup ended. I remember that day. It was the day that that Russia, that whole, they got into the battle over there that we're apparently still not supposed to talk about. The same day that happened, I was even joking about it. I was like, shit, all we needed for that thing to end was for Russia to just, invade. So, and then that just cured everything up, because then the news immediately started talking about other stuff. What's going on, Mojo?
Hi, sorry I got here late and didn't get a notification right away. I was actually kind of busy too.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Everything's good.
You showing up.
Yeah, I think I'm on demand. I'm getting better.
Yeah, Mojo, if you don't know, cracked his rib. And so if you've ever had a cracked rib, that is absolutely horrible. All right, let's see who Alpha Damien is here. It's a new one. How you doing, bud?
Hello? You hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah, how y'all doing today?
Doing good, man. How about yourself?
Yeah, I can't complain.
So do you have anything on what we've been discussing?
Well, I gotta admit, I haven't been listening for very long. So if you could just give me some of the cliff notes, that'd be great.
Well, like how the last 5 years, it seemed like everybody had lost their mind originally, but because of it, they've become more awake than I've ever seen in my lifetime. Generally, people are awake. And what's happening now, I think, is this new world order they want. So you notice the WEF is pretty much backed off, right? They're still trying, WHO is still trying to do their little treaty in the background, right? But it's not going anywhere because it's because of social media and the interconnectivity of everyone at this point, right? Especially with, I hate to say, but with like X is really a big pain in their ass, I think. And they would love to be able to silence that platform. We got Timothy. Whoop, did he leave? I was just about to add him. So anyways, if you guys have seen this video, I'd prefer not to listen to this whole thing. It's awful. And it's just propaganda. And you can't even really believe this is like, these are like adult children. These are like, they're not mentally capable of being free people. But someone like this is not mentally capable.
Eating takeout on these planes.
Because daddy government told me to go get this thing. Now I'm so super happy because daddy government had told me I couldn't leave until they developed this thing. And then they developed it. And now today's the day that I get to go get some random shit, put into me. So how happy, right?
The time indoors has got me stressed, but I just checked on CVS.
All right. Yeah, that's all I can do with that. But yeah, that's what we were dealing with there. Right? It's pretty crazy.
What was that? What did you just show on screen there?
All right. So it's this, it was a rather larger influencer. Hold on. Let me see if I can bring Timothy Wellen 10 up here. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You got anything you want to say about this?
Well, I just joined right when Damien joined the panel. I'm still kind of lost what we talking about.
Okay, we were talking about the last 5 years, right? And yeah, just like, okay, so you asked me, Alpha Damien asked me what this was. So this was an influencer, and there was a bunch of influencers that were getting a ton of views and a ton of money, and they were getting probably propped up by USAID, if I was to guess. From behind the scenes, I'm sure there was USAID money going out to these influencers 100%, because that was like the CIA's piggy bank, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure it's still there. All they did is just shift it somewhere else, probably. But then again, Bill Gates is crying about not being able to fund Gavi anymore, and says he's going to be in D.C. Pressuring Congress to fund Gavi and the Global Health Initiative and all that garbage. So maybe it did deliver a blow to them. I don't know. But anyway, so this guy is literally singing the song from Frozen, but he changed the lyrics to about how happy he is to go to CVS and get the thing. You know what I mean? Yeah.
What thing are you talking about?
The experimental medical procedure that is not turning out so well.
The jab
booster?
Yeah. Well, you got to say it a certain way. At least it's just good to. And so, yeah, it's the jab. Yeah.
The booster shot.
No. Well, all of it.
So, gender reassignment surgery?
Well, I mean, that's pretty bad too, but that's just another byproduct of the non-compos mentis, the level of non-compos mentis that society is at these days. So, but yeah, here's Bill Gates.
I love that guy.
Yeah, I don't believe you. Do you actually?
Oh, Bill Gates?
Yeah.
What's your problem with him, sir?
You guys got to be joking, right?
Well, he's done a lot of good stuff for the country. I mean, like Microsoft, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
Everybody
you ever heard of
uses
a
that in the
computer
office now.
You think Bill Gates invented the computer?
Yeah.
No, I didn't say he invented the computer.
No. I said that. I said that. Yeah, I think he did.
All right. Well, he absolutely did not invent the computer, and honestly, he didn't even.
Was that Steve Jobs?
No, dude. He didn't even invent Microsoft. Okay, he stole it. And then goes, oh, well, there's a lot of stuff to run in a big successful company like this. Like, you didn't develop Microsoft, bro. And he's not a doctor. I read some books on the subject and I talked to specialists. Oh, okay.
He's a doctor?
No, he's a
I
philanthropist.
thought he was. I thought he had a PhD in like data science or something like that.
He's a philanthropist. He's not a medical doctor. No.
Oh, philanthropist. So he does charity work. Oh, that's great.
He's what I like to call, and other people call, a philanthropath. He likes to use the guise of doing charity work to enslave everybody and try to.
How does he enslave us? Look, I don't want to be like giving any conjecture or anything. I just want to hear your idea because
Oh, I love when people
my
like
family,
you,
Bill
I
Gates.
love when people like you come up in utter disbelief, right, without having heard anything that I've ever talked about before, and then try to tell me that I'm wrong. So sure, let's have this conversation.
I don't want to be give no disrespect, sir. I just want to hear.
Oh, it's not disrespect. It's not. But you. So what you say is, how are you a slave? Can you own anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, I own the land I live on.
Do you? Oh my goodness,
I've owned my home for 30 years.
So you both have a allodial title?
What I mean?
Oh, that means that you don't have to pay anybody to own it.
Stop paying your taxes. See who owns it.
Gifted from my uncle. I paid him in cash, like $2,500 for 50 acres.
Do you pay property taxes? That's called a feudal tenure. That means no, you don't own it. Somebody else has a superior interest in it. That would be the county, which is actually just a corporation. And what they have become is feudal lords, right? By taking administrative control of all the land and then making you a tenant on the land. So you actually have no real property rights, no common law property rights in your property whatsoever.
Oh,
well, I have the right to.
I never thought about it like that.
I have the right to build on it.
Well, don't you have to go get a permit?
Right for me.
Don't you have to go get a permit?
No.
Well, what happens if you get caught building without a permit?
They don't got to know I'm building.
Well, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm asking you a question. See, if you had a allodial title to your land, they couldn't demand that you get a permit. You could tell them to go fuck themselves.
Mr. Burn the corporate fiction. Do you live in America? You American?
100%. I'm a Michiganian.
Oh, Michigan. All right. Well, that explains a lot because a lot of what you're spouting here is just plain and simple non-American ideals.
Are you? No, so you're trolling me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Absolutely not, sir.
Okay.
I mean, well, what I'm hearing here is that
hold on.
No
so
disrespect whatsoever. No, I just came on here to talk, man. And what you're telling me, I don't know. It's a little fishy.
It's
okay. You say, let me go. You say you could build. Say you can build anything on your land. Well, that's great, and they don't need to know about it. But wait till they send that appraiser around and you find out you got that new shed out back and you didn't pay anything on it. You'll get taxed on it. And if you don't pay those taxes, they'll take your land. Now, who really owns your land?
Well, I do.
Hey,
well, I own it, but like,
no, you don't. They mortgage your right to property.
Right? So
I mean, a world without taxes, what is that supposed to be? Just it's anarchy.
Well, no, there's a proper tax system, which would be like sales tax, import-export tax, certain excise taxes, but you can't get carried away with that, right? Absolutely not a tax on your ability to labor, and absolutely not a tax on property that you own. That's slavery. That is literal slavery. That is what peasants would do that's what the whole feudal system of England was, actually, entirely, start to finish.
Okay, so if we don't have a king in America, so if I don't own the land, then who does?
You do have.
It sounds like you read the Leviathan. Is that true?
You do have a king in the United States of America. It's called the United States Corporation. The United States, the District of Columbia, that's the king. That's because they've made everyone else subject to them through the 14th Amendment, and then mortgaged your property rights in 1933. So all of your property, everything linked to your social security number, is held in trust, and you are merely the trustee of that trust. You have no actual controlling interest in it. You have to use it how you're told and ask permission to do anything, because you're technically considered an infant under guardianship as a 14th Amendment citizen. Okay?
14th Amendment. Which one's that?
It would be the 14th one.
Yeah, I know, but like, which one is it?
The one that came out of the Civil War.
It's the one that created the United States.
The 14th Amendment.
It's the one that created the United States citizen, the federal citizen.
No, that's the one that prohibited slaves, right?
No, that's the 13th Amendment, except in cases of
Yeah, the
crime,
penal, correct?
being convicted of a crime.
The 14th Amendment basically is the one that made us all slaves.
Yeah, it made you subject instead of being one of the people who created the government, right? One of the people of the state who has the absolute right to property, right? And is only subject to common law and your peers and not the government because they serve you, which I can prove 7 ways from Sunday. All right. When you became a 14th Amendment citizen, you then adopted a persona that was a creation of the creation of the creation. So the people created the state. The states got together and created the federal trust called the federal government, which is actually just a feudal trust. And then the federal government created the 14th Amendment, which anyone who signed up for that, it gave them privileges and immunities, also known as civil rights, in exchange for the administrative control of your estate. Now, which part of that don't you believe so I can make you look stupid?
Man, it all checks out to me.
Okay. Anyways.
Timothy, you there?
Well, sorry, I just got a little sleepy. But I got like a question. It's a little off topic, but it's still a little on topic. Do you think billionaires should exist in America?
Well, all right, let's look at that for a second. There is only a finite amount of gold. Constitutional money is gold and silver. Okay? I don't think you'd have the ability to become necessarily, if everyone knew the law and knew how to keep their property, right, and not contract their sovereignty away by becoming a 14th Amendment citizen or any other sort of indenture that they might come up with. Yeah, I agree with you. Brad and Tasha says, yeah, I philosophically, that's true.
Need the go.
You said what?
These guys need the go.
They're
What?
about to.
I was trying to listen.
They're about to
You're
because they're
being
very
rude.
they're very
What
unserious.
now?
But
Yeah.
hold on.
Disrespectful.
What?
So,
Look,
so
I'm
what
sorry.
is-
Look, can I
hold
say
on.
something quick? Look, I'm
Can
sorry.
I
if
ask
we
you
came
some?
off
Can I
the-
ask you a series of questions?
Yeah, you can ask, but can I finish what I was saying first? Then
What are
can
you
ask the
saying?
question. Look, I just want to say, look, I get that we're new and everything, so I'm sorry if we came out disrespectful, but we just want to learn more about the topic. All right.
When you're
We're a little-
pretending to snore and yawn and I'm sorry, that's rude. That's outright rude.
I wasn't doing that.
Who was doing that?
Good to see you, Sarah. Sarah, we got Sarah over in the chat. Yeah, it has been quite some time. So glad to see you here.
All right, you can ask your questions. Look,
Okay, I can ask my questions. Do you have money?
Do I have money?
Yeah.
I could have
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
That's for
No, do you have any money at all?
here and there.
You have no money. There is no money.
There's no money. I have money.
No, you have Federal Reserve notes, which are negotiable instruments. They're debt contracts. They're not actual lawful money. So you can't buy anything with a negotiable instrument.
I actually, if I'm going to tell the truth, I don't have much cash on me. I actually, I'm not sure if you know much about cryptocurrency.
Okay.
That's the majority of where my wealth is stored.
You're not getting the point, dude. You say you want to learn. I'm trying to teach you, right?
I love to learn.
Okay. So what you have in your bank account, whether it's numbers on the screen or it's bills in your pocket, they're actually promissory notes, okay, that are secured by the mortgage of your sweat equity, your estate, which means your right to own property. They are not actual money. It's not money. It's not inherently valuable. It's a promise to pay on behalf of the United States at some future date that's unspecified. So it's just debt. It's not money. Yeah, that's what I thought. I love when people like you guys come on here, dude, because you try to troll and you think the stuff sounds so stupid, but you can't even wrap your mind around the most essential fundamental concepts regarding this trust indenture
I'm listening
system.
to you, man. I'm not with the other guy.
Okay, that's fair. I thought you guys were a pair, so I apologize if I'm attacking you a little bit.
It's all right. I understand.
That's fair. All right. So it's not money. It's negotiable instruments. It's backed by the mortgage of all the property of all the people who agree to be subject to the United States Corporation through the 14th Amendment. Right? So I'll show you real quick, just in case anybody else here is has never seen this and you're new, just so we can get this out of the way. This is March 9th, 1933, page 83, right off of, if you look at the address where I downloaded at the top, Government Printing Office, you can find this on congress.gov. And it tells you right here that the money, so they're talking about the new Federal Reserve notes. They just confiscated all the gold, okay, at gunpoint. Are you yawning again? Is this boring to you?
Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to the one who just yawned.
Who was that? Was that?
It had to be you because it wasn't me or Jeff.
I know it wasn't Deb or Mojo. So
Can you continue?
So they mortgage your property. It says right here, the money will be worth 100 cents on the dollar because it's backed by the credit of the nation. It represents a mortgage on all the homes and other property of all the people in the nation. But Congress could actually only lawfully do this to people under their jurisdiction, which would be federal jurisdiction, which would be the jurisdiction of the District of Columbia, which is only 14th Amendment citizens. Okay, so we have Black's Law, 4th edition. The 14th Amendment became part of the Organic Law July 28, 1868, and its importance entitles it to special mention. It creates, or at least recognizes for the first time, a citizenship of the United States as distinct from that of the states. Okay? So then we've got this here. Hold on. I've got, where'd it go? Not that
Hence,
one.
as I mentioned before, that's where it made us all slaves, with it using the term citizens, but citizens of the corporation of the United States, which, as Ryan said, is actually the main headquarters, if you want to call it that, is Washington, D.C. That's the headquarters of the corporation.
And it does business as the United States, and it has territorial jurisdiction over all of its own citizenry within the states, which the states have been complicit in making sure that's pretty much everyone. And so that's why you never hear governors go, Michigan citizens or Florida citizens, South Carolina citizens. They'll never say that because you're a resident to them. You're a citizen of the District of Columbia. Resident is short for resident alien, and that's a foreigner. Okay. So, oh God, who do we got now? I'm afraid to let anybody else.
Can I put it? I want to put it like in business terms, where, like I said, Washington, D.C. is the main headquarters of the corporation. Every state's a local branch, and we are all the employees of that corporation working in a state. But the state is not the main corporation. That's what Ryan's saying. We really work for the United States of America. That's what they sold off as our labor. That's what you go to work every day, pay the taxes for them. Then they'll fine and fee you, and that's how the corporation's making some of their money.
This right here, before I let you up, Mark, because I just got to make sure you're not a troll in a second. So I got to make sure I'm ready to kick you if you say something stupid. This is a UCLA law review written by a guy named Evan J. Criddle. Okay, so a lawyer, law student. This can actually be admissible in court as evidence because law reviews are admissible not on the same level as other like Supreme Court cases and stuff like that, but this is still admissible. Anyways, it says the emerging fiduciary model in administrative law. Administrative law is the regulation of property under administration, which is basically the telling infants what to do with property that they're not able to actually control because they're not deemed able to have a will. Okay. And so, posits that, so it says the emerging fiduciary model in administrative law posits that administrative agencies like the DMV, right? DMV is an administrative agency, okay, are endowed with authority to set regulatory policy regulating your use of the motor vehicle, which is a commercial term, right? So you got to pay for permission to use it and operate in commerce in this wartime situation that we have going on here. So, hey, El Piro, I didn't see you over there. Good to have you, man. So it says right here, so they were endowed with authority to set regulatory policy when Congress and the president, acting jointly as proxy settlers for the sovereign people. Okay, so we can stop there. So that just told you that Congress and the president acted jointly as proxy settlers. Well, what is settlement? settlement is the conveyance of an estate for the benefit of some person or persons, like the ability to engage in commerce, right? For instance, and then to supply for your civil rights and supply for your, yeah, we're going to mute that, and supply for your civil rights and all the other stuff. So conveyance, it's the conveyance of an estate, which means giving over the controlling interest of an estate for the benefit of some person or persons. And you've just seen that UCLA Law Review said that they mortgaged your property. All right, you're out of here, bro.
Thank
Mark,
you.
what's going on?
Hey,
Are you on some bullshit too, or do you actually have something to say?
no, I'm just seeing what you guys are talking about.
Okay, what we're talking about is the law, New World Order. We're just kind of going through and talking about, you know, the entire trust indenture control matrix that they're trying to set up and make permanent with AI right now. So the settlement, for those of you that that were actually listening, is the conveyance of an estate for the benefit of some person or persons. All right, and so we go back to that administrative law review, which got too many damn tabs open. That's the problem. But yeah, hold on. I literally have, there it is. All right, so and then it says that acting jointly as proxy settlers. And then you go back here to 1933, the money will be worth 100 cents on the dollar because it's backed by the credit of the nation. It represents a mortgage on all the homes and all the other people in the nation. All right. And then we have, did I pull this up? Nope, I'll pull it up though. So now mortgage of all the homes of all the people in the nation, right? And we're going to go to mortgage. There it is. Now, this is a very awesome research tool because you can just go to legal dictionary for any word and it'll give you multiple legal dictionaries, including Bouvier's definition, which is common law definition, right? Unless it's not a common law term, because he says with references to civil and other forms of foreign law is the full title, because civil law is foreign to us. So anyways, the mortgage. It says that the party who borrows the money and gives the mortgage, the debtor, is the mortgager. That would be Congress to the Federal Reserve. They're borrowing the money, okay? They're using you as the surety, as the security for the loan. Your sweat equity, your future productive value is what has been mortgaged, which is how they were able, that's as long as Federal Reserve notes are in existence and in use, your property as a U.S. citizen is mortgaged, okay? That's settlement. And so the party who borrows the money and gives the mortgage, the debtor, that's Congress, is the mortgager. The party who pays the money and receives the mortgage, the lender, that'd be the Federal Reserve or the IMF or World Bank, take your pick, right? Any one of these leviathans, probably the Bank of International Settlements, honestly, ultimately. And then, of course, it's the papacy at the top. But anyways, so that's the lender, and they're called the mortgagee. Under early English and U.S. law, the mortgage was treated as a complete transfer of title from borrower to lender. So what the president and Congress did was said, hey, we don't actually have anything of our own because we're a fictitious dead entity, right, that does not create anything, and we only take like a parasite. But what we have here is a whole bunch of chattel, okay? And what we can do is we can basically indenture them to you and promise to give you their productive value in exchange for the ability to appropriate as much money as we want. And that's what they've been doing since 1933 specifically, but even since 1913. All right, so treated as a complete transfer of title from the borrower to the lender. The lender was entitled not only to payments of interest on the debt, but also to the rents and profits of the real estate. Okay, so your income tax goes to the payments of interest on the debt, okay? But the rents and profits are the regulation of your use of property. It's the regulation of your property by administrative agencies. That's called rents and profits of the real estate or the property that's been mortgaged, and that would be you. So you have to go get a license, attach it to your Social Security trust, of which you are a trustee, and all your properties linked to so that it can be used as collateral. And you go get the driver's license, you got an account number that's attached to your Social Security trust. right? And then you got to put your commercial advertising on the back, right? Not only so they can identify you, but so they can, that these road pirates can find a reason to cause you financial injury by creating an attachment to that account, which is called a ticket or a bond or an arrest, right? Whatever. They have to create that attachment to that account. That's the whole name of the game. And that's how these banks, which are pretending to be courts, are having the rents and profits of the real estate that's been mortgaged. So this meant that as far as the borrower was concerned, the real estate was of no value, that is dead, until the debt was paid in full. Hence the Norman English name, mort, dead, gedge, pledge, which is also why you are treated as a non-living entity, as just property of the estate. And why the judge wears a black robe, because you're basically a dead soul, right, under the dominion of the Pope for salvation. Or if you're not Catholic, you're just a heathen, you have no right to property, and it doesn't matter if they get rid of you. So that's pretty much what that is. Do you guys got anything, Mojo? Or yes, El Piro, it's literally the pledge of a person. So, yeah, that's what. So I'm going to show you. You'll find this interesting, El Piro. You might even want to come up and talk about it. I think you will, Mojo and Deb as well. This I found. I was just thinking about it. I came across it a long time ago, and it's actually a court case from the DNC, Democratic National Committee, versus the Russian Federation. What's interesting about this, because I actually opened up the first file, right, is when you look at who it's filed against and what's being filed. So you got the Russian Federation, you've got Julian Assange, Donald J. Trump, Donald Trump Jr., Paul Manafort, and this was that whole thing that they're talking about now where they're trying to claim that Russia interfered with the 2016 election and helped Trump win, which apparently Tulsi Gabbard is debunking and whatever they got going on with that whole thing, right? Listen, right and left, two wings of the same bird, but the Democrats are absolutely the real radical communists, and the Republicans are only complicit by not doing anything. Well, some of them are actually helping, like Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham and all those pieces of shit. But at the very most, they're just not doing anything. So, you know what I mean? But anyways, look at these charges, okay? Computer fraud and abuse, whatever. RICO, okay, RICO conspiracy, whatever. Right down here, trespass, DC common law. What that actually means, what I think that means, and it would have to mean, right, because DC is a corporation, they're actually talking about the original oldest form of common law, which is still common law because it's basically the law of sovereigns, like I tell you guys all the time. Like if you're not subject to anyone else, this is what you're under. Or if you're co-equals, right, and say you're only subject to the Pope, which is actually the case, then, you know, it would be DC common law. Okay, so trespass, DC common law. This is where it gets really interesting. Trespass to chattels. What do you guys think they mean there? So what they're doing is they're using common law charges against the Russian Federation because that's the law of sovereigns. But what they're charging the Russian Federation with is saying that you were influencing our chattel property. You trespassed our chattel. Talking about everyone watching right now. You're the chattel property they're talking about. You're the 14th Amendment citizen. Trespass to chattels, right there, black and white. Conspiracy to commit trespass to chattels, right? And then whatever, Virginia computer crimes. What do you guys think of that? Sarah said, learning these things has my blood pressure, stroke level, and further furious because it now makes sense why I can't find an attorney to help me sue Ironton and further increases my fear of fighting pro se. The only thing you can do in their court, because they're not there to discuss facts of law with you, the only thing you can do in their court, Sarah, is challenge jurisdiction. That's it. Right? I come before the court, having been found to be living, and I'm the sole heir and executor of the res defendant estate, because they're not taking one of we the people to court. What they're doing is it's actually, you're being brought into court as property of the estate, as chattel, just like I showed you. Okay. And so you're not actually your property. And that's why they call it like quasi-rem jurisdiction. So your property, but you're the trustee of the estate. And so you're being compelled to answer the set decay use for the misuse of the property. And the set decay use would be the one who benefits from the use of the property. So theoretically, it would be the estate itself, which is bringing you into court to answer for your misuse of the property of the estate. And that's how they get around the whole unjust enrichment clause of generating security, generating debt. They outsource the securities. And then, to various bonding companies. Well, no, like I said last time, traffic tickets are actually, it's debt. So they do generate commercial paper themselves also. But that's it. So that's what they're doing there. And they're fining and feeing. So they only want to say, hey, trustee, we don't want to hear none of that other stuff. Did you not use the property the way that the administrative regulators told you to use the property? And if you didn't, then that's all they care about. They don't care about if you're living or, you know what I mean? So what you have to do is you have to keep from getting past the arraignment. You have to keep from getting past the arraignment. If you go past the arraignment to a trial or anything like that, then you've already given them jurisdiction. Now they can steamroll their way past the arraignment, okay, and just ignore you. Say, I come before the court, haven't been found to be living, and I'm the sole heir and executor of the res defendant estate here by special appearance to settle the confusion, right? Or to resolve the confusion because this property is not under administration, right? And then they're probably going to ignore you. Mojo knows firsthand their transcripts are just going to say inaudible or couldn't hear them or whatever the hell, right? And because they're not going to want that on their record. And since they're a private court, they don't have to keep an accurate record. That's why you keep your own record. And then if they steamroll, which means record with your phone, and if they steamroll through and ignore you and just keep going on, right? Do not give them jurisdiction because then you always have a way back. You always have a way back, right? Because they never lawfully claim jurisdiction. They have to do it because everything comes back to free will. And that's kind of like why they are dressed like priests, because this is a big black magic ritual that they're doing by pretending to be God before the throne room and basically trying to fine and fee you for the misuse of your own property. So, now if they will not 9 times out of 10 move forward unless they can get that jurisdiction. So they'll threaten you with jail. And then at that point, it depends on how committed to you are to this. Are you, you know what I mean? Or is it worth it? Is this the hill to die on? If it's like a fucking $100 ticket, then maybe you just fight them till they give you a good deal. But if they're trying to like put you in jail for say tax evasion or something crazy like that, and you're going to actually do some, just be like, go ahead and put me in jail. I'm not giving you jurisdiction. So you're going to have to charge me or let me go sooner or later with an actual crime because I'm not going to agree to be the trustee of this estate is essentially, and that's just one avenue. And like I tell the jurist members all the time, it's always a chess match, but it's much easier when you know what they're doing. And so what I'm explaining to and proving to everyone here is this is exactly what the hell they're doing. Right. Another tactic I've seen someone do is they bring 2 dictionaries in. I personally use the one I just told you. Another good opening at the arraignment is you bring those 2 dictionaries in and you say, hey, which language are we speaking here? Right. Actually, I think I have that video for you guys. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. I think Gino sent that to me. So let me stop this. It's actually a pretty good video.
It's definitely a chess game. The first thing about learning chess is got to figure out how the pieces move. So you need to learn how their pieces are moving.
Yep, that's exactly right. And what gives them the ability to move, right? What is being moved, right? So you're obviously not in there for a crime because a crime requires a victim. That's an absolute lawful fact. A crime always requires a victim. So what you're there for is some sort of administrative violation of an administrative regulation, which means you didn't use the property that you hold in trust as a trustee the way that the administrators told you to. And that's the issue. So let me see if I can pull this up from Gino real quick. And let me make sure it's the right one. You guys will like this one, though. And that's actually a good one, too. All right, let's see if we can open this up in a new tab. Let me make sure it's the right one. Yep. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Gino, for these videos. These are great finds when you send them, and I'm sure everybody enjoys them, so we do appreciate it. And they do illustrate a lot of the points that we make here. So, all right, so I'm going to expand this bad boy. And of course, it's muted. Take two.
The first thing that you need to ask the judge is, do you see a man standing in front of you? And they're not going to answer at all. And then say, well, I pity you, judge, because if you don't see a man standing in front of you, then you are completely incompetent. You are mentally incompetent to deal with this court. Because if you're hearing and seeing dead people, you cannot hold the court.
What would
So
you just actually playing that out? Let's play that out. I just want to. Sorry, guys, we were going to end up now. I'm going down, going into this a bit more, but I think it's important. If I did that, and the judge is just refusing to answer me, or just carries on railroading, how would you handle that situation?
Well, the minute you say he's incompetent and he cannot hold a court, then it's case dismissed. They cannot continue once you've made that acquisition. They cannot continue. Simple.
So you get that out before anything, basically.
Before anything, what they're trying to do is they're trying to create the joinder with the name, because what they're asking is for the all caps name, and as soon as they call your name out and you go yes or I am such and such, you're corresponding with that all capitals name. So first of all, before anything that they say, you say, Judge, do you see a man or a woman standing in front of you? And they're not going to answer. You know, all this rubbish with the oaths and what have you. I mean, that doesn't work. If you say, are you on your oath? They don't answer that either, because none of these judges are on their oaths unless they're in a crown court or whatever, you know, QCs. So straight away, you've got them on the back foot.
Actually, here in the States, which I'm not sure if this guy is from the state, but it's all the same system, right? Because like when we became sovereign, we didn't create a new law. Okay. We kept using common law, except for we were no longer subjects of a foreign power. We were subject only to ourselves. And then if we decided to contract into being a subject afterwards, well, that was our common law right to do so. But I can prove that's Chisholm v. Georgia from 1790 something, like 1795. I have it pulled up anyway, so we may get to it. But that is your, so we just kept using English common law. And whichever country he's in, here in the States, who is it? It's one of Zen's guys over at VSOF, Vocational Science of Freedom. I think his name's Viper. And he's been doing a lot of suing judges down in Florida for not having their oaths. They don't have their oaths on record or their bonds posted. Right. And the reason they're doing that is because there are real spiritual implications to everything that's done in this world, especially in court. This is the real black magic. That's why they call the AI for lawyers. They call it spell book. Okay. That's why, because it's actual binding like stuff. And so they don't want their oaths. They don't want to have oaths of office on record to uphold the Constitution or post a bond, because they immediately violate that almost every single time, right? Or let's not with normal people, with people like us. When we come in there and we're saying stuff like this, they have to violate their oath, because the stuff he's asking is the common law questions. You see a man standing before you. If you don't see a man standing before you and you see dead people, then you're incompetent. And that goes back to the law of administration we started the video with. You're incompetent and you cannot run this court.
You know, what is your date of, because they haven't given you a dictionary, when they ask you what is your date of birth, you can say something like, well, a date of birth was given to me on the day I was born. You're answering the question without answering your question. So you can't be done for contempt of court. So you're spinning it. So you're doing exactly what they're doing. So instead of what is your name, what is not your name? You can say that to him. What is not my name? That's a verb.
Have you done this yourself? Have you used this?
No, I've seen other people doing it, but that
actually gets into that syntax. So yeah, I should probably. That's actually very clever. I mean, but then you deal with these tyrants and they'll just be like, oh, answer the question and stuff. But those questions, that's a very good line of questioning. That would stump the court. And then you'd put the judge in a position where he has to either be a tyrant or drop the case, right? And depending on the situation in the case, it could go either way, but it's pretty good stuff.
I was going to do in the court anyway, but this is how I was prepped by other guys. So
there's a guy called Mark
Kishon.
He's in Australia. I've forgotten his name. Oh, damn it. He does solutions something or other.
Right,
you know what I mean? No. Anyway, the reason I'm going, I've forgotten his last name, but the reason I'm doing that is
that wasn't the video, and that wasn't the one I was thinking of. But that was good. Actually, I'm glad we watched that. So let me see if I can find that other one I was actually thinking of about the dictionaries. I could swear it was Gino who sent it to me. So just bear with me for a second. I'm trying to find it here. Well, anyways, what the guy does with the dictionaries, if I can't find it, I have other cool ones to show you guys anyways, though, but if I can't find it, what the guy does with the dictionaries is he basically brings two dictionaries in, and he says, I brought these dictionaries because I need to know what language is it that we're speaking in the courtroom today. Are we speaking common English or are we speaking legalese? Because common law is common English, right? And then the lex mercatoria, the commercial law, the Roman civil law, which is they're all the same, really. It's just different ways at different periods of time to say the same thing. Because UCC is modern today's lex mercatoria. It's modern law merchant. And so anyways, yeah, he says, so which language are we speaking? And that's very clever, right? But this guy right here, this was a very good video. I want to show you guys this real quick. Open link in new tab. Go. Share the tab. Yeah. Hold on. Damn thing. What the hell happened? Okay, pause. Now, where is the sound? There it is. I hate when these reels are like this. It's so annoying.
KV means the literal translation. Well, literal translation from Latin and French means it is you who are the life. C'est tu, KV. It is you who lives. Transliterated, it means basically beneficiary of an estate. Literally in law, it means the life by which an estate is measured. So we are all an estate.
So, okay, I like that. The law by which an estate is measured, or the life by which an estate is measured. That's how it would be a trust created from a mortgage, right? To appropriate basically a loan. You're creating a debt so that trust that you're liable, the money has already been borrowed against you, right? And now your trust, the regulation of your trust is partially how you're measured, right? And then there was something else he just said. I was thinking, or he's about to say it, the beneficiary, and I'll explain this. I'm going to try to clear this up for you guys because the set the KV thing confuses a lot of people and they don't understand what a set decay trust actually is. But it's basically an advancement. Well, here, just listen to this real quick, and then
remember I said we're in a landed estate. In law, this is how property is held. When I said yesterday that the Pope issued a papal bull in 1302 called the Unum Sanctum, and there were other papal bulls that followed in the next 200 years, but that was the starting point. He expressed the first testamentary trust. A testamentary trust is a trust created for death.
So now, interestingly enough, like the Romans, they've never had a lodial title. Everything was always under the administration of the emperor, right? Or eventually the Pope. So they've never had a lodial title. A lodial title is a Norse, like a Norse Viking concept that was brought to England, I believe, in sometime in the first 1,000 years. I want to say it's like the 800s or something, but it's the absolute, basically you mix your blood with the soil. It's like, comes from the word all of some weird Norse word, like Olafothen or something, blood. And it means the oath of the blood in the soil. And that's what allodial means, the oath of the blood in the soil. And so you basically mix your blood with that land, and you promise to take care of that land and maintain that land, so that land will provide for you and your family and your heirs, forever. And so you're bonding yourself with the land. And that's why that's why property ownership is so sacred. Nobody could come on your land and tell you what to do with your land or how to live on your land. That's called being in the private. Now, the Romans, they never had nothing like that, right? Because they're big slavers over there. They always have been. And so, and don't mistake, I like Catholics and I like a lot of the Catholic teachings and stuff like that, but it's the government of any institution is generally wrought with corruption and a lust for power. So if you're a Catholic subscriber, I'm not trying to dog on, but this is just how things are run, because it's all spiritual, right? So it all has to come back to a spiritual fount of authority, which the Pope claims to have on the one side, and then the people claim to have on the other side. And those two things have been at odds with each other for over 1,000 years. No, not quite, almost 1,000 years. So in 2066, those two things will have been at war with each other for 1,000 years. So, anyways, yeah. So what he's talking about here is the set decay trust is basically when the original poor laws were introduced under feudalism. And if somebody cannot subsist on their own estate, which I show you guys the original Pennsylvania Constitution all the time, where it says that, if you can't, in order for you to maintain your freedom and independence, you have to not need the government to live. You just, for any reason, you have to be in the private completely. You cannot rely on the public to live. If you rely on the public, you become subject to the public. That's how it works. And when you did become subject to the public, even here in the States, but it comes from the Settlement Acts and the Poor Laws of the 1600s, late 15, early 1600s, when you become a charge to the estate, they take control of your administration. Now you become the one, the life that by which an estate is measured. You become, because you couldn't take care of yourself on your own estate. They literally take administrative control over you in order to give you benefits from your own estate and make you productive, so that they would force people to work in workhouses and stuff in England. That's how it started out. And you weren't under common law, you were under administrative law, and you had to do what you were told by the overseers of the poor, or whatever, parish overseers, or, whoever they put in charge of managing the poor of that township or that county. But they had this set decay is a charitable trust that was created by, I believe, the papacy, for that express purpose of basically being able to manage and control your estate for your benefit, because you cannot do it yourself. And that's what a set decay trust is. So any questions on that from Deb or Mojo or anybody in the? No? Okay.
You're spot on.
Cool.
My last will and testament, because what they were going to create is the civitas, the civil body, as the containment field of all of our life force in a artificial construct of fiction and law, that all of our living beings were considered dead fictions.
That's how they plugged you into their corporate fiction, as a battery. Now you go punch a clock at some corporation and you fuel the machine, making consumer products that people don't need, and you're really not, you're harvesting the resources to make consumer products people don't need, that usually end up in a landfill. It's just one big artificial plastic structure. For what purpose, right? And that's what they do. So you're just jacked in. You can't unsee it. Once you see it, you can't unsee how you are. It's like the Matrix is metaphorically 100% spot on. You're plugged into an artificial womb of comfort, of indoor plumbing, electricity, grocery stores, the ability for somebody else to create a company or a trade or something for you to do for work because you have no skills. I'm not saying anybody here has no skills, but that's what these corporate jobs are. It's what McDonald's and all these pointless consumer things are, to give jobs to people who have no skills. Right? So, because otherwise they would never be able to survive without the corporate oligarchy. And that's the problem. The only way to actually be free and for us to get away from the edge of darkness, right, is to learn how to become independent. Not just lawfully, but physically, materially as well. You know, talk to your local farm. Okay. Talk to your local farmer. They're regulated to shit. Maybe you can make them a deal where, like, hey, we don't have to tell nobody. When you hook me up, I'll pay you cash, you know, all that stuff, and just live outside of their system. Right? Find a source of fresh water. Right? Learn how to be off the grid, because if you're on the grid in any way and dependent on the corporate state in any way, the system will continue to move forward as it is. And the best you can do is be a huge pain in their ass by making yourself independent, learning the law, and then being like, I don't depend on you for nothing. You can't tell me how to use my property. What are you talking about? I'm not even a 14th Amendment citizen. But the only way to undo this in mass and actually create societal change towards a more intellectual and cultured society, that's our culture, not multiculturalism, which is a big farce. Diversity is our strength. Yeah, it's strong when everybody's at odds with one another because you're so dissimilar. You know what I mean? So yeah, that makes total sense. No, that was the small hat propaganda that they used to basically dilute our culture, our domestic culture. You know, because a community is only as strong as its cultural ties. You know, so.
It is, as I said yesterday, a cult of death. Back to what I said in the beginning about the Isis-Osiris mystery cult. When Osiris was resurrected, he then went underground and became the god of the underworld and the god of death. And he would be the gate through which you had to pass if you, when you died, and he would weigh your heart against a feather. And if your heart was heavier than a feather, which means you were weighted by the artificial constructs of the matrix reality in your mind, the world, you could not pass. But if you had money and you became part of the elite and you aggregated money through the temple and banked your money at the temple, you would be able to pass and be ascended into the ranks of heaven.
And see, that's why, yeah. And then it's just his advertising, his academy, which, I mean, I guess I can give you guys his name because I showed you this reel he put up. If I can find it, I think it's Mr. Jin 44, I think is his name. So there you go. I did my fair duty to plug in, but yeah, that's interesting to me. That whole ancient, and I've told you guys the story about Osiris, what he just explained, and now it just clicked together and made even more sense. When I seen that video, I was like, wow, yeah, that's exactly probably how it might actually work to a certain degree, like spiritually, esoterically. Like, obviously not Osiris, we're dealing with the one true God, but certain aspects or personifications of the way that the heavenly hierarchy might be set up, you never know, right? But anyway, I'll show you something interesting real quick. I'm going to share the window with you. So he was talking about that Osiris weighing your heart against a feather. And if your heart was heavy, is weighed down with all the belief systems from this artificial construct, this artificial reality, then you would cease to exist, right? But if your heart was lighter than the feather, then you'd go to the field of reeds, I think it was called, and you'd be reunited with all of your loved ones and all of your possessions and live in abundance forever. That was the Egyptian thing. Well, what I find interesting about that is when we look at the IRS logo, and I know you guys have seen this before, but why not show it again? Because he just brought it up. Yeah, so it's either an eagle with a pair of scales, right? Or it's actually Death or Osiris, Saturn, holding a pair of scales weighing something against a feather. And this, like Sarah was just talking about over in the comments a few minutes ago, would be the artificial matrix construct that you believe for some reason you owe these people money when you are the value. Or you should be, because if you're welfare and all that crap, then you're not. That's the whole thing about not accepting benefits of any kind and learning how to be independent. You have to get independent from the matrix. You have to. And that's where you get the whole, like Jesus said, he said, is it lawful, Rabbi, is it lawful to pay taxes? And Jesus said, let me see a denarius. Dude hands him the coin and he goes, whose face is on this? Oh, it's Caesar's face. Well, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and render unto God what is God's. You know what I mean? But the issue here is that what they're using is ours. It's our sweat equity. But it's only yours if you're able to take care of yourself. Because lawfully, if you're not able to take care of yourself, then it is theirs. What do you guys think about that?
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's go ahead, Mojo.
I was gonna say that's the way the system is.
Yep, like it says right here in 1776. Hold on, let's see what Alpero's saying real quick. Well, first Peg's place, so much of history is about sun worship. Yeah, that's true. For some reason, I thought that was said sin, but that's a conversation for another night. But yes, it is. But there's also a reason, and it's not actually the sun that you think it is, right? It's the light that's. But like I said, conversation for another time. But I did think that said sin, and now what's interesting is. Sin is debt. It is. It's spiritual debt. That's what sin is. Sin and debt are almost interchangeable, which is why that whole Mandela thing was able to happen with the King James, because it didn't necessarily change the substantive meaning of what was being conveyed by the scripture. It just changed the superficial way it was expressed. And so it's, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. In the Lord's Prayer, that's the original. Right now in the King James, it says, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, right? And that's different, or at least a lot of people claim it is. Okay, I'm not going to say for sure one way or the other. It seems different. I don't remember that. So, but it is substantively the same because sin is debt, right? So here we have this, Section 36. So this is Pennsylvania, original Constitution, September 28, 1776. And this is the Declaration of Rights, it's a plan or frame of government for the Commonwealth. So there's the plan they're putting in action. We go down to Section 36. That's 26. Tripping. As every free man to preserve his independence, here I'll re-highlight it. As every free man to preserve his independence, if without sufficient estate, meaning your estate or your farm, whatever your estate consists of, which is the property you have interest in, doesn't supply you with the funds to survive. You ought to have some profession, calling, trade, or farm whereby he may honestly subsist. There can be no necessity nor use in establishing office of profit. The usual effects of which are dependence and servility, unbecoming of freemen. So offices of profit are welfare offices, right? That's how you get these people who become overseers of the poor. And their job is to make the poor people productive. And then as part of their administrative fee, they get to take a snippet. They get to take off the top of that estate. They get to profit from the estate. That's what all of Congress is doing to everyone that's under the 14th Amendment right now, as we speak, with that big, with every appropriation of funds, they're borrowing against your sweat equity, and they can do it because you're dependent on them, right? And that's how the law has always been. It's always been that way, going back to time immemorial, So, all right, El Piro says, to make one's plea before Osiris in the world of the dead would mean that one has to know the language of the dead. Is that what you have been taught? No, I think it's kind of the opposite because the reward is everlasting life. So if I was to metaphorically look at the Osirian mythos, right, I would say that it's actually to learn that you're not the dead, basically, right? I would think because that would be to realize the truth of how this thing's actually set up. People literally have invisible prison bars made of belief systems in their minds where they just think that's how this is supposed to be. You're supposed to drive the speed limit. You're supposed to put a plate on your car. You're supposed to, get a license and all that stuff. And if you're supposed to do whatever the cop tells you, right? All that stuff. But we all know that's bullshit. If you know what's going on. So let's see. Oh yeah, Brad and Tasha. I told you guys to email me anyway. I told you that. So anyway, the claiming of the estate. Yeah. So this is the very first step to becoming removing yourself from the system is claiming your estate on the public record, which I personally have already done. And so have many of our fellow jurists in the Jurist Society have, and the rest of them are working on it. It's a large document. It took me a long time to do, and it's 31 pages, but it pretty much covers everything. I'm sure we can always improve on it though, but it covers everything that could possibly be presumed to tell you what to do with your property that I could think of anyways. And the only next best thing than that would to do the exact process that they did in the Court of Wards and Liveries when the heir came of age under the Magna Carta and was able to sue his guardian for the controlling interest of his estate. And, you'd probably have to go to England to some sort of museum or something to be able to look at old documents and see how that was done in the Court of Wards and Liveries. But this is how all titles to property under common law are affected by the public record, the county record. That's how you change title. So you're issued a land patent, say for your property, right? You're issued a land patent from the president. And then after that land patent is a chain of deed of title. So you basically deed is something done. So and it used to be you had to have a whole ceremony, just like the original Viking thing, where essentially you didn't put your blood in the soil like they did, but what you did was you basically had witnesses. I believe it was a quorum, 4 come and witness the sale, and then you had you had to obviously use real money because that's the only way you can buy anything. So it was gold or silver, something precious, valuable, and you made the exchange in front of these witnesses. And so basically the person would have to say gold, and he'd hand you gold, right? And you'd take, like, say, a handful of dirt or something off of the land, and you'd hand it to him. And so technically you're exchanging. It's a lawful exchange of consideration, and it's binding. And then you write it up in the deed. The witnesses sign the deed that they've seen it, and then the buyer acknowledges the deed, and all of that goes on the land record. And that was called livery of season. And so that's how it used to be done a long time ago. And then they got rid of the livery of season. All you had to do is just go down to the county and do the deed and do the acknowledgement. And then the attorneys introduced the registry system and then locked all of the land up in the registry system while simultaneously making everybody infants. And so now, and they're like, oh, it's so much easier this way. That's what the attorneys would say, because we only have to deal with one person instead of having to trace back the whole chain of title and do an abstract, right, to make sure it goes to the land patent. Well, so it's your job, dude. No, but the ease, which it always is and always will be, just the excuse to take something from you in the first place, right? So, let me see here. Sarah says, sorry for going off topic, but I wish I had a phone camera worth of shit. I've seen 3 movers since I've been outside the last 10 minutes and could show you why I call them movers. Well, that's interesting. So they're not actual like movers, like moving, like moving people. Like, are they like enforcers? Or are they like, you talking about like goons in a black truck or something? What are you dealing with down there? Sounds a little sketchy. All right, well, she's typing that answer. Let's look at the last one, a Gino's thing. See what you guys think of this. That is the total wrong. Yeah, got to do that. Then I got to reshare it after I open it. All right. And
as final from the desk of the.
So now I want to bring this up. First, I want to see, I haven't watched this through to its entirety. I want to see what it is that she's actually doing. But if she's doing what I think she's doing, which is trying to do what I just told you have to do on the county record, but on a video on the internet, it's probably not going to work. Well, not probably, it's definitely not going to work. It has to be on the, because when you put your claim on the county record, and there's also another aspect, you create your house seal, right? Because everyone has a house, and there's so much to this. That's why you got to watch my old shows. I can't go into everything every time. But basically, you're housing under development, your HUD, right? And it's not just housing like, wood and drywall and all that. It means houses in your house of. Your housing under development. It's just another layer of presumption that they have against you because, again, you're under administration because you're a pauper and you don't have access to money and you're an infant and can't hold title. Because otherwise, none of this would have happened and they wouldn't have been able to do that to you. And that's true. If you weren't incompetent, you did do what should have been done the entire time and made sure that your children knew the law, made sure their children knew the law, so on and so forth, all the way down. There's no way it would have ever happened. But and it definitely wouldn't continue to happen now with our availability of information, but they've managed to make people so stupid that, but anyways, you create your seal. So you have your house and then you create a house seal and you can just have it made by any seal, corporate seal company. It doesn't matter. There's no difference between a corporate and house seal except for who owns it. And I get an embosser because it's much more professional. I have one. And then everything you seal, it changes the document. It bears its own consideration. So it automatically proves itself, especially since you're the seal of a foreign state to the corporate United States. And Bouvier's dictionary, seal of a foreign state proves itself. So first thing, you create your house seal, publish that on the record. And the second thing you do is seal your claim, obviously, right? And then it also protects you against any fraud or any presumption of contract. Like, what contract do you presume I'm under? Show me where I signed and sealed that. That's what the seal exists for. It's what it always is, for protection from this exact contractual malarkey that's going on here. So as Jeff was teaching us before, there's people in the Bible were killed by the misuse of their seal. Jezebel got a hold of, I forget the guy's name, his seal, and basically got him executed by writing a bunch of stuff in his name and sealing it and sending it to the authorities. And they came and said, well, you did it. It's your seal. And that's how the law works, right? So it's a sacred thing that you didn't just let anybody have access to. Generally, only the paterfamilias of the house would have access to it. So, all right, let's see what she does here.
Living. Let this stand as final and public notice of your dishonor, your breach of fiduciary oath, and your unlawful usurpation.
I know she's not doing this notice with a filter on, is she? Is that what I just seen? All right.
Of jurisdiction not granted by the people, the land, nor the living nation of which I am lawful trustee, beneficiary, executor, postmaster, and commander. This is not a petition. This is not a request. This is a binding and sovereign warrant of correction and eviction. By the power vested in me, through the Creator, by blood, breath, trust, and treaty, I hereby strip your court of any presumed jurisdiction. You are evicted from any and all claims, standings, or proceedings against the living trust estate. And now, and furthermore, you have defrauded the court by recording fiction, mislabeling instruments, forging jurisdiction, misapplying statutes, and acting in open hostility towards a federally protected person. And trust estate, in violation of international law, the Geneva Convention, and fiduciary duties of your office. You are out of bounds and out of time. I hereby levy a fee schedule and fiduciary penalty against any further action, delay, or obstruction against the estate.
Okay, mostly what she's saying is okay. She's still not getting that the creation of the state or the creation of the trust happened from the mortgage of your estate, right? In the first place. Well, actually, the creation of the trust originally happened by you accepting benefits from the federal corporation in exchange for being under their guardianship. So essentially, they're like, hey, we'll give you privileges and immunities and we'll protect you in exchange for your autonomy. Now you have to use your property. We're able to mortgage you, borrow against you, and do whatever we need to do to take care of you, but we'll take care of you. And people are like, okay, daddy government. And they go become a 14th Amendment citizen. And then, okay, that's not fair. I'm being kind of a dick because a lot of people they were kind of put in a corner with the Great Depression. A lot of people starved to death and stuff, if we believe what we're taught. And kind of, they needed all those New Deal welfare programs because the bankers had so that's how they ended up, under the 14th Amendment en masse. But originally it was just for newly freed slaves who were property. And so they went from being private property to being public property. And because they didn't know how to be independent, like we've been talking about, they were not able to have, they were non-compos mentis. They weren't able to take care of themselves. So they could not validly have a will at common law. So the federal government sees that opportunity, the federal corporation sees that opportunity and be like, okay, well, we'll take them under our guardianship and we'll give them civil rights, which are actually just privileges and immunities that can be taken at any time by Congress, not the same as rights endowed upon you by God, unalienable ones. So give you these privileges and immunities in exchange for the ability to control your estate. And that's exactly what happened. And so she doesn't really know that. So whoever she got, I'm thinking she got this from the internet legal guru, right? Who doesn't quite know. And a lot of what she said is good. And he is committing fiduciary malfeasance. We have that in our claim and in our seal. That's one of the reasons why you create the seal, is to protect yourself against any kind of administrative malfeasance. And so, but this isn't going to work this isn't on the record. It actually has to have a public record number and be posted into the public. Remember, I was talking about the difference between public and private. You have to put the public on notice. Now, she's not understanding. She thinks like public is just like, well, I'm in public and I'm on the internet. That's not what that means at all. It means by government controlled, like the public. So you've got your private property, whatever you absolutely own. And as soon as you step off that, you're in the public. But you can do whatever you want on private property. And you are sovereign on your own property, right? And that's what makes you sovereign. And now, as long as you conduct yourself properly in public, nobody can apply the regulation of property stuff to you. Nobody can be like, oh, your property's under administration. No, it's not. I'm a property owner. Okay, my estate's not under administration. I have hurt nobody while I've been in the public. So you cannot gain any kind of control over me, government. And that's how it works. And in fact, at common law, in order for anybody to have any kind of control over you, you have to commit a crime, and it has to be a living peer, which peer means sovereign. That's why they trace royal lineage through Burke's peerage. It's called Burke's peerage. That's what a jury of your peers is fellow sovereigns. And they have to decide to charge you, and they have to try you, and they have to convict you. There is no judge. It's just a magistrate, justice of the peace. And he's a paper pusher. He doesn't decide the facts or the law. Right? So, this is not going to cut it. This is not public. I mean, it's in common usage that it's public, but it's not lawfully public notice. Right? So a newspaper would be better than this, right? So honestly, I just thought that the best thing would be to put it on the record and then put the record in the newspaper. That'd be the best way to notify the public, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I like the idea.
Yeah. But let's see. So Sarah, to go back to what she had said, she was talking about UAPs outside of her house. So, oh wait, not that one. That was her answer to that. Yeah. UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. There's a lot of that going on, you know. It's almost like there is like sort of like a draconian undercurrent of some sort of interdimensional force that seems to come cyclically, maybe. I don't know. This is where I get off into the weeds a little bit, and I try not to do that too often, but can't help it when you're talking about this stuff because it just makes you think, how'd you go from what we had, right, throughout the late 1700s, early 1800s to this? How is this allowed to happen? You know, was there a reset? It would make sense. It basically, how could everybody lose their estates like that? Or was it that rapid but incremental? I mean, I know it definitely had a lot to do with takeover of the education system, but that didn't fully happen until 1903 with the General Education Board. But that would be post-Civil War. It's Civil War. It's the Civil War. It's the Civil War destroyed the country, the education system, and you had a good, you know, from 1860, 3 to 1903, you had a good 30 years. So it's a whole generation, the opportunity for people to become massively stupid, maybe, right? You think 30 years is long enough to make that happen? That's a question to anybody who wants to answer. But I don't know. I don't know, because the education, if we believe what we're taught, and again, who knows, it was so much better than what it is. So according to history, and who knows, but what you can learn about education in the 1800s is that we had like the highest literacy rate in the world. Like 98% of people were literate, and and schools were ran by local communities, not the government necessarily, like directly, but the communities had huge involvement in what was being taught at their schools. And what was being taught was like liberal arts and sciences, Latin and Greek, philosophy, the things that not like liberal arts today, but like real liberal arts. Like we're talking about the ancient stuff, the Pythagorean, you know what I mean? Like, so, you know, and then it goes from that to basically, you learn the Bill of Rights in 5th grade, and then we never bring up anything to you again about law or finances. We'll teach you debt management, but we won't teach you financial management. So yeah, it's just such an uphill battle, isn't it?
Enforceable at $10 million per day per living man or woman trespassed, beginning 5 days from date of receipt of this warrant. Each unlawful citation, booking, detainment, or administrative process without explicit bilateral contract or trust agreement constitutes high commercial fraud and military grade breach of duty. The court.
Okay, there you go. But how are you going to enforce that one, though? Right? So what she's saying is, so put it on the public record. Like, actually, so the fee schedule, that's a good thing, right, to have on the public record if you want, right? But then it comes back to the true preliminary law of nature, upon which common law is ultimately based, and that would be the law of force, which as a whole, we the people have the superior force, but as individuals, you know, we just need to keep doing what we're doing, because that's the whole point. Ever since 2020, there's been a mass awakening going on. You know, we got this channel. There's a lot of channels like my channel. I don't know if anybody actually teaches what I teach, except for Zen at Vocational Science of Freedom. He's the only other person I've seen that has a really good grasp on what's going on. And actually, the Gemstone Academy that Jeff sent me in the email, that guy, he knows his stuff too, but he's very tight-lipped about it. He doesn't like to do the YouTube and all that stuff. That's what he said, but he does know his stuff, and he's he just likes to gloss over, like, in order for the things to change, there'd have to be a lot of monetary things change. Well, yeah, because the whole monetary system is based on the mortgage of your property, which creates all these bullshit man-made laws that take on the color of law when you're presumed to be under this contract, right? Or these many, many contracts. So, yeah, that's, but anyways, people are waking up. So we just have to keep doing this. We have to do what we're doing, teaching people, because we do have the force already. That's why we didn't become Australia in the last 5 years. That's why we didn't become New Zealand in the last 5 years, where they're telling people they got to go get the poke, or they're going to go to prison for 6 months, go to jail for 6 months. That was New Zealand. This was happening, right? Australia, there's a couple. Let me see if I can find this video. I want to find this because this is absolutely insane. And I wonder if it would be on YouTube. I don't know. Let me check. Let me stop sharing the screen. You guys aren't going to believe this. You want to see what was going on in Australia? Let me see. I'll go to YouTube. And I'll share the tab in 1 second. Let's see. Honeymoon couple. We'll put couple arrested. And then I can't even say the rest. Or I don't know. I don't know how YouTube is with that right now. Australia. Can I think? There we go. No. Bear with me for just 1 second. We're going to see. Yeah, this is it. Can I play that though? Let me try to find all right, so I'm gonna share this with you guys. Woman charged after scaling balconies to flee. But that's not, it's these guys right here. But I don't know if I can play that news clip or not without getting copyright strike. YouTube's so fucking irritating with that stuff. Honeymoon ends in arrest. We'll try just speeding it up maybe, and then it will not be a big deal, hopefully. All right. Yeah, we'll just try this one, whatever. If I got to cut it out.
Trouble in Paradise.
If I got to cut this out later and there's a little gap in this video, it's because of this video. So let me speed this up. Playback speed normal. I'll do 1.5 times. If we can get to 1.5, whatever, that's close enough.
A Sacramento County couple is busted for defying the Hawaii quarantine orders and leaving their hotel on their honeymoon.
CBS 13's Ryan Hill is live with the wedding bliss turned honeymoon blues. Ryan?
Nope, that's not it. It's the it's definitely not them. I have no idea. Violating, so they got arrested down in Hawaii, but there you go, is another one of those liberal, not Second Amendment states. And they were trying this place in some states, but they couldn't do it here in mass because of our First and Second Amendment. They just couldn't. And that's how we massively have the power. So what I think they're doing, yeah, you're probably not going to find it. So I'll just tell you guys the story. What happened was basically this couple got married and they wanted to go on a honeymoon. Well, over in Australia, the way that they had their policies to keep everybody safe was they set up like 5-mile quarantine zones. And then they had drones with facial recognition flying around and scanning everyone's faces and running it against their LEI database, legal entity identification database, to see if those people were outside of their registered residence. And if they were, they got arrested. And what happened was this couple went to a motel on their honeymoon that was outside of their zone. They sent literally, that's why I wanted to find the video. You wouldn't believe it until you've seen it. They sent like 10 cop cars. I don't know. There's a ton of cop cars, but that's not even what got me. They had a helicopter with a spotlight flying over to make sure they couldn't get away. That's how they treated that. And all they did was go on a freaking honeymoon. right? So over in China, they were locking people in their apartment buildings, right? And welding the doors shut. Canada, we all seen what happened up in Canada. It didn't happen here. They tried, they tested the fences, they pushed a little bit in these blue states, right? The places that have strict, laws against arms. Well, strict statutes and codes against arms, because firearms a commercial term. So it's it's not in the Constitution. They made that word up. There's what's a firearm, right? So they're just arms, what they historically always have been at law. And the states that have the strict laws, they tried it there, but they still only push so far. And in red states, man, it's like, and that's what they were using social media. And they were using this AI, I believe, to filter all of the raw data they're getting from the social media, all of your likes, whatever you put an emoji on, whatever you post, whatever you even just watch. All of this stuff's being filtered into, I believe it's called Pegasus by Palantir. And if you guys have never heard of it, you should look it up. It's called Pegasus. And it's being filtered through this AI analytic database, whatever you want to call it. I'm not a tech guy, but they're filtering through this database. And then this AI is able to then take all this raw data and tell them whether or not something's going to work, or how far they can push, what the likelihood of us pushing back would be if they did this, or what's the likelihood of us pushing back if they did that. I'll give you guys a perfect example, and feel free to disagree with me. But yeah, Sarah said we love. That's funny. Yeah, that's pretty funny, Sarah. So I was looking for the video, but anyways, so all this raw data is going in here, and it tells them what the likelihood of whether or not we'll push back here, what they can do there, how far they can push it. And I'll give you a perfect example. The most recent one is with the client list, right? And I personally think it's being used as a tool to control, because there actually is like a battle between these people going on. And I mean, like, I'll show you, it's one that you're not even supposed to really realize or know about. And, they do work together in many, many ways, but obviously they're, they stab each other in the back, and they're, fighting about things. And the document I showed you guys earlier actually lends credence to that, my thoughts on that. This one, where they're literally filing this common law charges against the Russian Federation for trespassing their chattels. You think they want you to know about this, that they call you chattel, which is property, movable property, which is what slaves are. Slaves are considered chattel property. So anything else that you can move that's not in a fixed, place, that's not real estate or an appurtenance on real estate, it's called chattel property. It's movable property, right? And they don't want you to know that's what you're called. So there actually is that thing. And so with the list, I personally think possibly it's being used as a tool of control. It's brilliant if it is, because at the same time that they, that Trump's allowed to start deporting people, is the same time that, the judges stop fighting him so hard, is the same time he goes, oh, that list is not real. Right. But then the public, and this is where we have the actual power, or the people, not the public, because the government's technically the public. The people, in our collective capacity on social media, we're like, fuck you. No, we're not even going to accept that at all. And it started getting rowdy. And I guarantee you that AI algorithm the Pegasus thing told them, say, hey, look, dude, you're going to have to give them something, because they're coming for you if you don't give them something, not in that personified of a way, but I guarantee you that's what the thing probably told them after analyzing all that data, how pissed off, and not just pissed off, but like murderously pissed off people are getting on the internet saying some crazy stuff, right? Well, and rightfully so. I get it. But that's an example of how something that they, they wanted to just slip past everybody for whatever reason, whether it be good or bad, the power of the people and the new interconnectivity from social media could actually be a benefit and advantage for us in that way. When people collectively get rowdy and they're like, no, we're not accepting that. And we're talking en masse, millions and millions and millions and millions of people posting, commenting, all that. And then next thing you know, they're like, well, actually, we're going to probably just go ahead and reopen that investigation, look into it. And, and now they're starting to backpedal. And so they're going to try to probably find some sort of contingency plan. But this is how they're testing the fences, in my opinion. Right? So, you want the link to the DNC Russia lawsuit here? I'll put it in for everybody right now. It's a zip file. It's a PDF zip file. So you'll have to, it's like 100 and it's a pretty big case. So you got like 1 through 9, 10 through, 100, so on and so forth. But here, let me link this for you. And I'll put it backstage or in the private chat for you and Mojo Deb if you guys want it. All right, so there's that. And here you go. Very interesting stuff when you read, and especially if you've been in the Jurist Society or like El Piro, I'm sure you'll understand a lot. If you've been studying law for some time now and actually understand the only way that they can make anything outside of, well, they can't make common law. So law can't be written. It can only be written about. The only way man can make law is via the regulation of commerce or the regulation of property under administration. Right. And they have to have some sort of superior interest to do that. So when you understand this and you start reading these documents like this, and you see just in the very first line, some of the charges trespass to chattels, basically like, hey, you were trying to brainwash our chattel. Nobody brainwashes our chattel but us. OK, that's how we do that. And that's literally what that charge means. Like, this is our property and we're the only, if anybody's going to brainwash them, it's going to be us. Right. So that was gross. I had a fly in here and I just smashed him on my monitor, and that's pretty disgusting. Yeah. Ugh. He was annoying. Gotta love the summertime with the flies. No problem, Jeff. No problem. So, all right. Oh, I want to show you guys this. And since I've already shown one media clip, I might as well show another one. I'll probably wake up to a copyright strike, but whatever. This was kind of weird, I think. Oh, what we got back here? Oh, it's in. Okay, which one of you are actually on here? Deb? Say something. Is that one you? You're muted? Having connectivity issues? All right, I'll keep an eye out for you. And if you have to leave out and come back in, I'll make sure I let you back in. So, yeah. And then we lost Mojo, looks like. All right. Well, anyways, I'm sure he'll probably, there he is. All right. Good old connectivity. Go ahead, what?
I'm back. I was playing around that link you sent and knocked myself out.
I've done that before while I was hosting the stream. So, all right, let's go over here. Well, actually, I got to stop sharing it. This is crazy. So this, again, going back to New Zealand and Australia, I told you New Zealand was like, hey, you'll go to jail for 6 months if you don't go get the poke, and or face like, I think it was like a $10,000 fine or something crazy. So I'm going to show you. This is pretty interesting. Let me see if I can find. How far back did I save this damn thing? Ah, right here. This is crazy.
Legislation today.
Let's see if I can speed this up so they don't. It's fair use, YouTube. There's no reason that they should have accidentally cut to a satanic ritual during this broadcast. So it's fair use, educational purposes only. If you didn't know that Australia is run by Satanists, or that the world generally is, now you do. It's education. I'm helping you guys learn that. It's and one more thing on the list. That's the other thing that makes the list not just dangerous for the people on it, but also dangerous to just the world in general economy, because it's not just well, actually, I'll show you a video after this. It's a piece of the puzzle. Well, listen, I'm all for doing what's right. It's got to be done carefully because it will destroy the economy. You guys have to realize the stock market will immediately crash. And I get it. It needs to happen, I guess, anyways. I'm hoping for a more smooth transition into something that's tangible, but it'll happen the way it happens. But think about this, like with the way that people have been waking up. Yeah, you can come on panel and ask about a court case if you want. Yeah, for sure. Dr. Bass Ackworth says he's coming up here. So you've got these Fortune 500 CEOs. Those are the small fish that are on this list. We know the players. If you've been awake to the way the world's run for a long time, you know the players that are on that list. You know that Rothschilds are probably small fish on that list compared to some of the people that are on there, even though they're one of the biggest fish around. If they're even dumb enough to be on the list, they probably have their own islands and stuff. But anyway, the people on that are like the movers and shakers of the world economy, right? These people that are forced, once you become so powerful and prominent, you're forced into a blackmail situation so that you go along with the New World Order agenda. The Illuminati openly wrote that this was their plan in Proofs of a Conspiracy by John Robeson. They said, we're going to use sex bribery and blackmail to control all of the heads of state and church, heads of church and state, right, around the world, to get them to all move in concert towards this one world government that we have in mind. And this was written in the 1700s, 1776, if I remember exactly, the same year our republic was born. So they've said that this is what they intended on doing as the control mechanism. And it is a very powerful control mechanism, you know, because you have these very public people that are very high profile, very wealthy, and a scandal like that will not only ruin them, but ruin probably everybody around them. And so when that happens, if that happens, it's definitely gonna shake some things up. So, all right, but check this out. And I think I sped it up. So, oh, no, it doesn't want to play. Of course not. Stupid thing. All right, so that one's playing, but just this one is not playing. That makes total sense. Let's try refreshing it. Okay, we got to go all the way back down to it again, but maybe it'll work this time. Holy smokes. They don't want you guys to see that they're actually a bunch of deviants. Here we go.
Much announced the proposed legislation to.
Okay, no, we're going to speed this up now to 1.5. Fair use, YouTube.
Parliament. The state government announced the proposed legislation today. It's in part due to the stabbing of a police dog during an arrest in Brisbane last year.
Watch this. Just randomly cuts to that. How you like that? It just randomly cuts it. And look,
nothing is random.
Well, I agree with you. It wasn't. Yeah, it was 100% intentional. You're for sure. This is probably one of their ways of telling you what they're doing, without actually telling you, like, "Oops, did you see that? Our bad." You know, it's a figment of your imagination. We were just playing dress up or whatever, right? But they're showing you. They're showing you the truth of how this is, what's going on. And look, this looks like it's in the studio. Look at that. It actually looks like it's in the studio. That's a freaking camera right there. So they're filming it and everything. And it's so watch her reaction. It's pretty funny.
Recent outages have shown how just one.
What? How? Like, hold on.
Yeah.
How do you make a mistake like that? How did you just cut there perfectly at that exact? Let me know in the comments below. Somebody tell me. I'm very confused.
Yep. So yeah, I agree with you, Mojo. It doesn't just happen, right? You don't just accidentally cut to that. It's not really happening.
Of course,
Here's some. Go ahead.
I'm sure we all noticed in recent years there has been an uptake of, hey, we're going to throw it right in your face now.
Yeah, and that's that whole basically, if I sell you, like Mark Passio says, if I sell you an apple, if I've got a sign that says apples and I poison the apples, but my sign just says apples for sale, and you come and you eat the apple, then I killed you because I deceived you. You've just thought, yeah, I didn't tell you. But if I have a sign that says poison apples and you come up and you buy one, you eat it, you killed yourself because I told you. I told you what I was selling. And that's why it's funny when you see these people walking around drinking liquid death. It's like, I believe you, dude. I believe that is liquid death. I don't know what you put in it, but when you named it liquid death, what would possibly draw somebody to drink a canned water in aluminum, right? Called liquid death.
It's insane.
It's the same thing as poison apple. Well, you probably drink them, don't you, Mojo? You sound kind of quiet. You like them?
I've been drinking a lot of orange juices and basically a lot of juice and water and coffee once in a while in the morning.
I'm just teasing you, bro. You just sound a little. You're like, oh man, I like the liquid death. That's what I thought I heard there for a second. But
I don't even think I want to touch the can.
Exactly. You know what I mean? This is probably made of arsenic and aluminum, or something. That's how these people roll, dude. But they're telling you. So it's not like it's all of a sudden you end up with some sort of stuff going on. It's not like they didn't tell you that's what they were doing, right?
Right.
Spraying the hell out. Look at that. And when you really look at it, you can see it's like a gray, metallic ball, basically. It's 60, whatever they are. I think probably close to get. Yeah, that's nuts. All right. Anyway, I felt like I had some other stuff. And then we're going to give Dr. Bass Ackwards a few moments to come up here. Yeah, this lady. So, yeah, this lady's singing about misinformation.
When a huckster takes some lies and makes them
You know what? I'm glad that you froze.
sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origins are slightly less atrocious. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie.
Now, look, this chick, what's really funny about this post is when you go into the comments. Look, this was what was happening when they were trying to make this shit fly, right? I remember this. I think I was down in Virginia when this dumb stuff was going on. It was like disinformation straight out of 1984. Disinformation czar, right? And this, of course, was going to be an administrative regulatory body that was going to control your free speech. So
She looks like a guy, possibly.
She probably is. I mean, isn't that the thing with most of them? All them needy theater kids. all the Dems needy theater kids. There you go. It's funny. So many people call them theater kids in the comments, and that's true. I know Salty Cracker calls them theater kids too, and they are almost. It's like politicians are like failed actors or something, dude. They're all a bunch of. That's why I told you guys they're all gay. It's like it's seriously a faginati, dude. I'm not kidding you. I really mean that. Like, I know when I made that stream, it sounded funny, and it was meant to be funny, but it was also very serious. Every time you get to the bottom of one of these conspiracies, at the bottom of the rabbit hole is some sort of sodomite. You know what I mean? Some kind of deviant that is hates common law because what they do is unlawful at common law, and they wanted to basically be an open rebellion to it. Okay, yeah, this is one I wanted to show you guys. Now, I didn't quite get, yeah, this is interesting too, but no, I didn't quite get what he was pointing out, but I want to see if you guys do. So this has to do with that
went missing in
that flood that happened out in Texas with the wealthy camp or whatever, where those rich girls tragically were lost or perished or whatever, right? So, Brad and Tasha says, warned us of Edom, Amalek. Yep. No, I mean, it's, definitely there's only one book that has a bunch of different genders. So, all right.
Hey, look, check this out. You know them girls, right? The girls that went missing in a camp due to the flooding? Oh, you won't believe it. They found them. They found them. Look, check this out. Especially that one. That one specifically. Look, those are the girls that are missing, right? That were missing. Look, that one looks familiar too. Give it a second. Look, check this out, right? It's crazy, bro. They found them. I promise. They show it on the news. Oh, man, I'm not playing. Look. See? There they are. Look at that. None of them are crying. Oh, wow. They're not dirty. And look. This one's smiling. Look at that. There's a couple on there smiling. There's even one with a crest has dummy helmet on. I don't know what that is though. But look. Yep, they found him. Look, there's a one with a bicycle helmet. Watch. This one look familiar though? Check this out. Look at that. Huh?
Now, do you guys think that was the same? That was the same girl? So, you got that
Not
girl.
necessarily.
Right.
Then some people think JFK is Jimmy Carter.
So this girl's obviously older than that one. That would be either that would have to be an older picture, which would be smart to do if you're going to do a false flag type situation. It'd be smart to do like a younger picture in case, this happens. And then, you could, like how we're like, that's not the same. She's way older. It could be, there's something to think about. That's quite interesting, though. What do you guys think? Huh?
Yeah.
All right. So Peg's Place says, look at the French Prime Minister and his wife. Candace called them out. I know, that was hilarious. Everybody thought she was crazy too, but it's like, dude, I mean, the whole story of them getting together and everything, isn't he like 30 years older than Macron or she, whatever it is. And it does look, I mean, it's the hands too. You always look at the hands. They got these big old NBA player fucking hands, like George Foreman grills, they're just massive mitts. And they can't do nothing about that. And then occasionally, they got the square shoulders. But I mean, there's that one guy, Fittest Flat Earther. I think he gets way out there on some of the shit he's talking about. I mean, he's like, you see that little mole on their cheek right there, right next to that little mole? Yeah. See, same thing over here. It's like, dude, a lot of people have freckles and moles, bro. It's get out of here with that shit. But then other stuff he does is, you're like, yeah, actually, that seems kind of plausible. So this is the other threat from within, and this would have been the one that was activated. I truly believe that this would have been the one that was activated if things had went entirely according to plan. And I'm not saying that they're not. I'm just saying I don't think that they went as well as they wanted them to. So,
but are buying these churches. We bought 3 churches so far, converted them to masjids, and now we have one we are buying with a school to make it, because we have to serve the same people. the people who were part of that community, one day they will be Muslims. So we'll make it into a masjid and an Islamic school for our children and their children, inshallah. 100 years ago, they invaded the Muslim world and they built missionary schools and destroyed Islamic schools and masjids. Today, we bring the favor back, turn their churches into masjids and their schools into Islamic schools. Bring the light of Islam to here. We're able to buy ready to go institutions that have been there for a long time, but they emptied out. And now it is time to be filled with Muslims, with reverts, converts. This is an election year, but we're not going to be happy with either candidate. We have to be happy when Islam becomes the best candidate for us.
And now you've got.
I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give Islam the victory in this country.
So you want to talk about something that's incompatible with common law, right? Commercial law at least starts in common law. Sharia law, no, absolutely no. And these people are dead set on they think Islam's going to take over the world. They really do. Like, they say it out of their own freaking mouths. So, yeah, I don't like this post right here. You know, that could be an AI image, whatever, right? But what this guy's saying is quite interesting.
The lands of ribat, in the lands of jihad. My sisters in Islam, we have brothers and sisters in the lands of ribat, in the lands of jihad, who are holding the ummah's honor on their shoulders. They are standing and they're fighting with their blood. They are standing and they're fighting with their children for you and I, so we can walk up one day and say the izzah of Islam, the guarantee of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we will dominate occurred on their hands. Wallahi, that day is coming. Just like it came before, it will come again. Wallahi, I say it again. I am elated. I am happy. Wallahi, I've never seen it ever in my life. The shift and the tide that has occurred over the last year against the Zionist regime. Wallahi, my brothers and my sisters in Islam, victory is coming. And you and I, inshallah, because we love Allah and we love His Prophet, we are on that path to victory. We are on that path of this civilizational struggle where we're going to see Islam dominate, where we're going to see Islam.
So, yeah, actually, here I am. Brings up very good point. Not a single one of them is doing that. So, and then what's interesting is it kind of puts you between a rock and a hard place too, because like this is happening also, and it's by design, of course, and probably the same people that basically they want to put it's so they put us in a rock and a hard place by doing this shit, and then now you have to choose between an absolute I mean, he sounded peaceful and happy to me. How about you guys? And that sounded very peaceful and like a guy who just wanted to coexist, like the bumper sticker, right? Or did it sound like somebody intent on absolute dominion over our republic? I'm pretty sure that's way. And that's how all of these guys sound. That's how all of these guys sound.
That was his underlying message for sure, and he was very passionate about it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's tons of them. You got one guy that's running, and it looks like he might actually get mayor. Right? And yes, and that is the point. It's brought in here to destroy us from the inside out. Absolutely. But even more importantly, what I think it's brought in here to do is basically put us between a rock and a hard place. Like, who would you rather deal with? Because these guys are absolutely opposed to Zionism. Obviously. Except for like what Here I Am says. Not a single one of them are actually going and helping out Palestine, but whatever, right? So apparently it's really only rhetoric to serve their purposes and give them like a just cause for a holy war, but it basically puts you in that position. And maybe I'm wrong. It's just how I see it. It's like, okay, so now you either have one as a bulwark against the other, and then that's what you get to choose. So which one do you want to be the bulwark against the other one? That's like the choice they're trying to put everyone in. And that's why we have to put a stop to this too, by waking people up to it, because they only live under Sharia law. Well, not all of them, but the devout extremist ones, right, want to institute their own Muslim courts, their own Muslim laws, and all that good stuff, right? That's fine, and I get that, because the same way common law is based on the Bible, right, is their Sharia laws based on the Quran. However, and the teachings of all their, you know, in the same way that the Talmud and the rabbinical government of Jesus, or of Jesus's time over the Jews, was founded by all the rabbis who interpreted the Torah, and this, you know, became the Talmud and other works, right, Kabbalah and all that good stuff. And but these guys, so they're just, you know, living under the law of their God, and that's fine, but you can't do that shit here, because this is not a Sharia law country, and we don't have places that we're going to institute Sharia law for it to spread. It's not going to happen. Okay, that's fine. You can be under Sharia law all you want. Go back to where you came from and fix that. And then you know what I mean? Institute Sharia law over there. We don't need it over here. Right? But this is literally, that's the intention, is to try to take over, and they want what we have over here. And probably because living in the, you know, a country that's mostly desert, it's rough, I imagine. I don't know, but you know, it is. What do you guys think?
I don't know why everybody seems to think they can come to this country and change it, when if we went to their country, they wouldn't have it. I don't understand how that is even a thing.
Exactly. And it is from it is obviously from the plans of the Illuminati to the, you know, at the end they're trying to spark up a war between Christians and Muslims, which has been going on pretty much like for the last millennia, right, over the Holy Lands and all that stuff. But you know what's interesting, and I want to ask you guys a question, because I thought about this, right? So, and I don't know if anybody else has ever thought about this, but how did Islam start? Okay, so what I mean is the Prophet Muhammad, right? So if we were to look up when the Prophet Muhammad, you know, let me just look up in my own tab real quick, so I don't have to undo the share screen. But so if we look up when the Prophet Muhammad existed, and we know that the whole Quran, like the whole Islam basically, is kind of around, you can't even draw a picture of the guy, right? So we're going to do, when did the Prophet Muhammad, so we'll say, when did Muhammad the Prophet become a prophet, whatever. 613. So it's 613 AD. Okay. So 613 AD, you have Muhammad. All right. So what was Islam before that? Have you guys ever thought about that? And I've tried to look into it. It's very hard to find information on it. You can find that it did exist before that, but you can't find what it was.
Yeah, I'm personally totally unfamiliar with it.
You know, so what was Islam? You know, so some people say that was the church created Islam as, you know, basically controlled opposition, but maybe that's what the Prophet Muhammad, maybe, I don't know, I'm not saying it is, but what was it before then? Just an interesting thought. All right, let's see. We got Forrest. How you doing, Forrest?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Right on. Yes, it's Dr. Bass. I don't know why it just gave my real name, but it's all good.
That's your real name. Oh, that's
yeah.
Cool. I was like,
Yeah.
Forrest, I thought it might be you. I was like, that's another weird, like, why do you use that nickname? I didn't know it was your actual name. It's a cool name, though. Not many people, I haven't met many people named Forrest these days. So what's going on, man?
Yeah. Oh, not much, man. I love your content, bro. I'm glad you're on right now.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So you got a court case coming up?
Yeah, tomorrow.
All right. So what is it for?
Well, it was a charge I got several months ago for possession of controlled substance. Yeah.
All right. Is it like a serious one? You don't have to tell us what it is, but
No, it's just, it wasn't anything major. No, it's just something small. But
okay.
Yeah.
It's
Santa Clara County.
Misdemeanor felony.
I think they're going to try to call it a felony.
So it's probably an analog substance. All right. So makes it a little tougher for sure.
Right.
Yeah. It's because they have more staked on it. If it's a felony.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll just ask away. Let me see if I can help you here.
Well, I mean, it's just like, I don't know if I should try to get a lawyer or if I'm just kind of battling with this in my head. I mean, it seems like I could probably, I don't feel like the public defender is really the best idea, but
the public defender basically exists to absolve them of liability because they know that people are incompetent. That's how they're even bringing them in the first place. No offense to anybody, but that's that it literally is what they're using to do it. They have to give them the attorney. But the issue with getting the attorney, I'm not telling you not to. It all depends on your level of knowledge of the law, the situation of which I highly doubt you want to explain on the internet. And and however it happened, there's a lot of circumstance. Was the Fourth Amendment violated? Do you actually have a leg to stand on with the fruit of the poison tree doctrine, right? To even fight, if you were to fight in equity with a lawyer, is what I mean. Because unless you know the law, right, and know how to challenge jurisdiction, not let them acquire jurisdiction. And when you're dealing with something that carries the threat of jail or prison time as the consequence for your lack of cooperation, what I mean? Because what they'll do is if they're charging you with something, they'll just hold you in jail, especially if it's a felony. They'll just hold, they can't really do this with misdemeanors. That's why I gave that advice for traffic tickets and dumb shit like that. But when it comes to a felony, especially if the felony carries years, right, they're just going to hold you in jail and make you tap out, probably put you in a holding cell, do all sorts of dirty stuff to you, basically strip you, not give you any blankets, and make you sleep on the concrete and feed you crap, and you know what I mean, miss your meals and do what they do that they would never admit they do. But I've seen with my own eyes, I've seen them do it, so I know they do it. And
I've been there,
and they make you tap out. And then once you do tap out, then they'll just accrue that time to whatever your sentence was going to be. And that
tap out, you mean like posting bail or whatever?
Yeah. Tap out as in giving them jurisdiction. Yeah. And then once they go through, they're not going to lose. I can guarantee you that. Even if you hire a lawyer, they're not going to lose because
they'll get something out of it. Yeah.
They're God, and courts of equity, the Bar Association, are lowercase g God and can do whatever they want.
Right.
So that's what sucks about the drug statute, because it is the regulation of the use of your property, and it is so as in your body, right? Because you're under administration as an infant under guardianship, essentially, right? As a ward and incompetent. And so they're telling you, hey, little infant, don't put that into your body. And this goes, seriously. And it goes back to the Magna Carta, where they have to maintain the property under administration until the heir comes of age, or until it's claimed, or any property under administration, because it is a set to case situation. It's charitable, and it's supposed to be philanthropic and holy, like a church thing. That's why I call them philanthropaths. They have to maintain the property and keep it in good order. So, hey, don't you smoke that joint, little infant. You don't do that, right? That's not your body.
how can they treat something like a felony if there's no victim?
Exactly. No, I
How
agree
does that work? Yeah.
because felony, that's all. So what you're dealing with is you're dealing with the Roman civil law. You're dealing with courts of equity, and it basically be it's basically just a different level of charge that they have. So you think like felony is in like, oh, you murdered somebody or something like that should only be felonies, right? Actual crimes with victims. And I agree with you. And at common law, that is the only way you can get in trouble at all.
Yeah.
Is to have an actual victim. But in the court of equity, they're basically, this is where they kind of like blend the criminal and civil with administrative when it comes to like the whole regulation, because they use the drug laws to expand the police power or the militarization of the police power, basically. Remember, it's the war on drugs is how they did it. Right. And then the crack cocaine epidemic of the 80s and all that stuff, and the war on drugs and the war on crime and all that. Next thing you know, you went from Barney Fife wearing, shiny shoes and having maybe a little 38 in his holster at the most. Now you've got literal armed special forces dudes rolling around and fucking tacked out, SUVs with canines and assault rifles and full flak jacket and everything. You know what I mean? It was the drug laws that allowed them to do that. And so that's why it's just one of those things where it's like, they're charging you for the administration of your property. So my advice, and of course, this isn't legal advice. This is just, one guy who's been through things, because I have to say that, right? But based on it all depends on the circumstances, dude. Did they violate your Fourth Amendment? Do you have a shot with that?
I don't know. I mean, I was driving without a valid license, with an expired license, and they just kind of railroaded me, got me out of the car and searched me.
For an expired license?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stupid. Well, you might be able to make the case of that. Well, but you got the contract in the first place. It's tough with the felony, man. If it was a misdemeanor, it'd be so much easier. That doesn't help you though. But so tomorrow's arraignment.
Yeah, it's first appearance.
Well, if you're feeling spunky and want to see how they're with the tone of the trial is going to be,
that's kind of what I was going. Yeah.
Try to deny them jurisdiction, like how I teach. You know what I mean?
Just go in there and like say, don't enter a plea or like.
Well, basically, you say what they're going to do, and your opportunity to deny jurisdiction is when they ask you to state your name.
Okay.
For the record, right? Or if they say, "What's your name?" That guy actually had a good one. I said, "What is not my name?" Right. So, what is not my name? So when you say, because I forgot what he said. That's why I need to learn that whole syntax thing. That's actually pretty interesting. He said it was like a verb or something, right? Which is true. It's not a proper noun. What is not a proper noun? It's not my name. Try that one. You try the dictionary thing, but the tried and true go-to that I always use, because you've got to find a good time to interject the challenge of jurisdiction without giving him the opportunity to like scream at you and tell you to, you either cooperate or we're going to put you in jail. And that's when they ask you to state your name. You say, I come before this court having been found to be living. And those words are very important because alive are two different things. Right.
So you have to say living, not alive.
Right. Definitely have to say living, not alive. Been found to be living, not alive. And I think it has something to do, because I think the term living is a period, is the cycles of 7 years is technically what that means. Like its ancient meaning, where it comes from, is like that you are currently going through your cycles of 7 years, because everybody goes through 7 cycles of 7 years. and then you start over. And that's why they say a fool at 50 is a fool forever, right? And this all does intertwine. I know that sounds crazy, but it really does.
Yeah.
And so, because it's all rooted in the spiritual again. And otherwise, he wouldn't be wearing a weird black robe up there, would he? But what were you saying?
Yeah. That's just crazy stuff. Yeah. It's fascinating.
So El Piro says it's not who I am, but rather what I am, living soul, just soli and just sangue, which means the law of the soil and law of the blood. But we do want to avoid, this is important, we do want to avoid making statements beyond the stating what I'm saying. So you say, I come before this court having been found to be living, and I am the sole heir and executor of the res defendant estate. And the reason you say you're the heir is because you're putting out that this estate is not under administration, right? Or is that you have the lawful right to this estate, and that you're the executor, because then the estate can't be under administration. Now, you've been watching me for a while, and have you ever heard me say the difference between an administrator and an executor?
I've heard you mention these words, but it's kind of over my head, really, to be honest.
So the term administration always regards trusts. If you look in Bouvier's, right next to administration, it has in parentheses trusts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so administration is always the control of a trust on behalf of someone else. All right, so let me put this simply. The executor and the administrator are the same position, as in the controlling interest, but the executor was appointed by the will of a living man or woman, who is now deceased, obviously, right? But is just generally the point is an executor is but not in your case, only in the case of last wills and testaments. But in your case, you are enforcing your living will, which is why you say you're the heir, and you're the executor because you've appointed yourself by your own living will. Therefore, there cannot be an administrator. There cannot be an administrator and an executor at the same time. So the executor is appointed by will. The administrator is appointed by operation of law, because there is no will. That's how they took everybody's estates in the first place.
And what exactly is the estate, though? Is that just your person?
So your estate is it's once you wrap your head around this, it'll make everything make sense. So the estate is all property you have interest in, and that includes yourself.
Okay.
Your body, right? So your estate is essentially the extension of your soul. It's everything that you've put forth your free will to acquire an interest in. And what I like to say, the easiest way to explain is it's your personality, your labor, your ability to labor, and your property, because your personality determines your choice of property, and your ability to labor determines your ability to acquire the property. Okay. All right. So it's your personality, your labor, and your property. So the property is the ultimate realization of your free will. And the whole point is you're saying that you cannot be the administrator because I am the lawfully appointed executor. And when you call yourself, but you're not going to say all that. You're just going to say, I come before the court having been found to be living, because living people cannot be in their court. You have to be civiliter mortis, or civilly dead, because you were mortgaged, which is dead pledge. State was mortgaged. Right. As far as the law is concerned, you're dead to the law. You only have an equitable interest in all your property, which means you only have privileges regarding your property that are dictated by a superior interest, and you have no lawful interest in your property, meaning you have no like common law property rights to your property, including your body. So you say, I come before the court having been found to be living, and I'm the sole heir and executor of the res defendant estate. Okay. Or you can just say the res defendant. And what the res means, the thing, the property, because that lets them know that you know that they're bringing in property. They're not bringing in one of the people. They're bringing in property. That's what they're doing. They're bringing you in as a trustee of an estate under their administration. And as a trustee, you're chattel property, right? In your position, because you're not just a trustee. You are the one responsible for performing all the obligations placed on the estate or the trust. And technically this gets confusing, so I try not to tell
I'm confused already, but I mean, okay. Some of this is making sense, but
so imagine this. Imagine that I have an estate, right? I've got my house as part of my estate, my land. I've got cattle. I've got all this stuff, right? And I'm going to go out of town for 5 years. Okay. And so I create a trust and I put you in charge as the trustee. You are now responsible for performing all the obligations of my estate, and you agreed to it, right? Or say you're under my administration, you have to do it because you're my ward, right? Or something, which, man, it's sort of a shaky example, but it works. So you're under, so you're now the trustee of my estate. I'm gone, right? But now the estate itself, because you're just a trustee and you don't have controlling interest, the estate can summon you to court, or it was called subpoena originally, subpoena you to court to answer for your misuse of my property if you do not perform the obligations of the trust. So that's where the subpoena originated. Now, when you get called into court, you're being called into court as property, though, not as a living man.
Okay.
To answer for essentially a trust relationship, just look at it like a contract is the simplest way to put it. A trust relationship that you agreed to, but your property. So part of the trust relationship you agreed to is I provide food and shelter and protection for you. And in exchange, you do what I tell you to with your property and my property. So in exchange for basically being my ward, like I said, and I provide for you all the benefits you need to survive and subsist, you do whatever I tell you to do with your property, as long as it's not like immoral or against the, so as to, that's why they have to maintain a certain level of moral turpitude. But you have to do whatever I tell you. Now, if you agree to this and I provide those things and you don't do whatever I tell you to do with your property or my property, and you misuse your property or my property, the subpoena, which is now the summons, because when there was a subpoena, people had some interest in property at law. They still had common law, just very limited in the feudal system over in England, very limited. Here, nobody has access to common law because everyone is dead to the law, because you have no ability to buy or own property. So you're literally a slave. You're property. You are property.
And that's how the system is set up, and nobody has common law.
So they can never get rid of common law. It's just people who have no access to, who have no lawful ownership of their property cannot enforce common law rights, because you don't have common law rights in your property because you're under administration. Which means that all your property is controlled by somebody who has a superior interest in it, which means you only have an equitable right in it, which means that that right is determined by the agreement that gave the other person interest in the property also. And so you can only enforce what equitable rights have been granted to you via that arrangement. And that has to be done in a court of equity, not a law, because the whole trust arrangement is a big pretend fiction. And fictions can't operate at law, which is why the one guy said, "Your Honor, do you see a living man before you?" And if he says no, or he says anything other than yes, he says, "You're incompetent because you cannot," he says that you cannot see a living man before you and you see dead people, so you must be incompetent. Because a living man can't be in that fictional situation. Only a property can. Fictional property. That's it.
And that's how all these judges and everybody have all been trained to understand the law.
I don't know if they actually know like how it's been done to the extent like I'm explaining.
Yeah.
But yes. Yeah, they do know that they're basically enforcing this trust indenture. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
I'd like to say hi, Dr. Bass Ackwards. I subscribe to your channel and love your little jams you put on there every once in a while.
Oh, thanks, man.
And I know you've been around a while. Are you familiar with a straw man birth certificate?
I mean, just from what I've heard people talk about, like, I guess that's how we sort of that's how we became in this situation, is by having a birth certificate. I mean, is that
So the
what that's
birth
all about?
certificate. So what the birth certificate does, and it's so weird because this is what I mean by like the invisible prison bars, where just these concepts are so foreign to people who've never learned them. And the more you understand them, the more that you hear them, the more you understand them, the more it changes the way you see the world and life, because you begin to see it as as a real man or woman instead of chattel. And you actually see the way sovereigns operate. You see how business works. You understand what equity is and the difference between law and equity and what determines who has equity and what and all that stuff. Because basically, it's this simple. Man cannot make law. Law cannot be written. It can only be written about. That's why the only things that are law are so that's why Article 3, Section 2 says, makes a distinction between law and equity. Because law is just the unwritten, up until the Magna Carta was unwritten because it was considered an abomination to write it down. It was transmitted orally at regular gatherings called like things or 100 courts, or where the people would get together and administer their own justice, right? And they would, and at these things, they would recite the law, and then they would try all disputes and all that stuff. And it was William the Conqueror came over. He said, no, self-government. That's not going to happen. Right. And so the reason people could do this is because they had a lodial title to their land. They were the absolute title holders. The king could not tell them what to do. Just like in the Bible, King Ahab couldn't tell some guy to give him his garden. Right. He had to actually, Jezebel thought he was weak and set the dude up and had him killed by using his seal, and then King Ahab could have the land. But he couldn't just take it from him. This is how it actually worked, even in England, all the way up to William the Conqueror. So William the Conqueror is like, hey, you guys need to, and it's because they were invaded by Denmark and like a 16-year period after he conquered, whatever. But he comes back after Denmark invaded, and he says, hey, if you guys want to be protected, you should do this feudal system. Oh, how do we do that? Okay, well, what I need you guys all to do is register your property and in this land survey book and this registration book, right? And then the king will have the controlling interest in the property, and then he'll gift it back to you. So basically, they gave their land to the crown through registration, making the crown the absolute title holder of all the land, or the controlling interest of all the land. They gave up their allodial title. And then he gifted it back to them under titles like baron or knight or whatever. He gifted it back to them. And this was a military feudalism, which we're under now, is a military form of law. Right. So he gifted it back out under titles. And because the king is now the superior landholder or interest holder in all the land, he could regulate the use of those lands by telling people what responsibilities, duties, and fees came with the title that the land was attached to. Does that make sense? So now he can make up law, but it's not law. It's just regulating property. Because man can only regulate property and commerce. They can't make law.
Law that to regulate people themselves. You mean like?
No, I mean they can't make law, because what is law? Law is do not violate someone else's free will, essentially. Don't trespass somebody. Don't assault, or not assault, but don't harm them, which would be another form of trespass. Don't steal from them. Don't sleep with their wives or husbands. Don't essentially that's law, and it's all biblical. It wasn't created by us. It's the way nature and operates, and it's the law of nature, and nature's God as applied to society, and it's basically it's biblical. So that's law.
It's kind of obvious stuff, really. Yeah, as far as like whether it's right or wrong. I mean, it's pretty easy to understand as far as that's concerned.
And so what they had to do was they had to take control of all the property, including you, by turning you into property, which they could do by making you incompetent and then making you dependent on them. And once they took control of you as property, basically in the same way that your children are your property while they depend on you, right? That's at law. That's true. So that they can now regulate you as property and all of the property that you would otherwise have use of.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still confusing, or are you getting what I'm picking up?
That's starting to make more sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only way they could do it. So go ahead.
So the birth certificate, I mean, we didn't even really sign up for it ourselves. I mean, but
your mom did. She
yeah,
applied.
so that's technically good enough for them. I mean, it's like you got signed into it without your knowledge of it.
With that and the Social Security card, that makes you a 14th Amendment citizen. Because what it really is it's a 14th Amendment citizenship, and it's really the Social Security card. But the birth certificate is issued to create a title to the estate. Right? Because we didn't, at common law, like in the late 1700s and early to mid 1800s, we didn't have birth certificates, dude. There wasn't birth certificates here in Michigan until the 1860s when they created the federal citizen. And now they wanted to create a title to the estate. They want to create a title to your estate so they can monetarily value you and mortgage you to a private central banking cartel. They intended on doing it the whole time. They tried it over and over and over again, and then were only finally successful in 1913. But it took a whole civil war to destroy the country enough to where we'd finally accept a central bank. It's one of the main reasons of the Civil War, actually. And
really.
No, it was. And so the 14th Amendment, it is a creation. So it creates a federal citizen, right? And the federal citizen is subject to the federal corporation. The federal corporation is subject to the original states, not these corporate administrative states that we have now. Those are under the federal corporation. But the original states were above the federal corporation, and the people were above the state. So it was people at the top, state, federal, United States citizen.
Okay. But when they say they represent the people, you know, the people versus whoever, you know, it's like, has that been sort of outdated? I mean, they still use that terminology,
but it's in all caps, and it's done that way for a reason. Now, people don't like to hear that, and it's been so watered down because people don't understand what it means when they first start talking about it. But it's true. So it's the people are written in all caps, and that's just the name that the public, the state, is going by.
Okay.
Right. So what happened was the public usurped the sovereignty of the people and masquerade in the costume of the people. But it's not the people; it's the corporate.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the corporate state.
And the all caps is like, it's like capital. I mean, it's like the all caps is about the straw man. I mean, is that when
is that
pertaining to like the,
what it does is it represents a legal fiction. It represents the estate. So it represents a non-living entity, a fiction. So the reason that I've been able to suss out that they put it in all caps, several reasons. One, because you're civiliter mortis, you're civilly dead. The estate's dead to the law. So this would all, under ancient Roman law, would minimize your standing, which when you have minimal standing, your name is written in maximal characters, basically. So and that's like ancient stuff going way back. But the other reason is because now they can say it's like how they call it dog Latin. It's technically a symbol that they created, a piece of art that they made, right? Which is why Prince turned himself into a symbol, actually.
Yeah.
The guy was brilliant.
That is,
yep. Piece of art, which can't be, is not subject to regulation. Like art is the only free thing really left. And that's why they do all their dirtiest shit under the guise of art. You know what I mean? Like selling quote unquote art. You know, and there's like a lot of stuff with customs laws regarding art, which is why they're able to fill shipping containers full of, you know, some pretty dark stuff and then call it art and get it into other countries. And so they use that big whole loophole. But anyways, my point is that it's like a piece of art that they created, and you agree to adopt that persona, that trust position that they've created for you. It's almost like they've written a role for you, is how I explain it in the Jurist Society. They've written a role for you. Okay, it's called 14th Amendment citizen, U.S. citizen, right? Public chattel. And this is what the public chattel shall do. right? So they're not making law, they're just creating your script, which they're allowed to do because you've agreed to come under them in exchange for them taking care of you and protecting you, like a daddy. It's called parens patriae. Government is parent, right? Or government is daddy, essentially. And so, anyways, you've agreed to adopt that role, and now you have to play out that part. And anytime you deviate from the script, they summons you, right, and compel you to answer for your deviation. And
that's what it's all about.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So, like I said, if you want to get a kind of a feel for the tone of tomorrow's or how the court case is going to go, just fuck with them a little bit, I guess, right? But ultimately, if you're not like, as much as you did not know of what I just explained, that could be more dangerous for you than just going with the public defender.
I know. Yeah. I'm a little bit nervous about that.
Yeah. So, that's, you gotta always know which hill to die on with these people, because at the end of the day, like I tell everybody, there is no silver bullet. It's always a chess match, right? The more you know, the better equipped you are to play against them. However, at the end of the day, we are territorially occupied by a foreign hostile corporation. Okay.
Yeah.
Under military martial law, no less. So, at the end of the day, it's
that's a situation.
Yeah, centurions, who could, maybe one cop will listen to what you say, actually be like, oh, I didn't know that. Hey, can I get your, email or something? Can you send me more of this information? I never knew all that stuff, right? And that's happened. We've seen it on videos. And then you get other cops that'll empty a magazine into you for not giving them your license.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's risky.
So, and then here I am says, can I sue them for extortion? Yeah, Social Security card says not valid if not signed. I have the original and never signed it. You might have an argument there for sure. Can you sue them for extortion? Only, so this is the whole thing. It's kind of like the same aspect. You have to claim your estate and you have to become independent. You have to get your house, and so you have to claim your estate, because if you are under administration, you could not live without what the trust that they've created for you, right? Then you are technically by law under their administration. So they're not extorting you. They would only be extorting you if you claimed your estate, freed yourself from their control, and they continued to try to administer your estate and charge you and all of that. And now they're attempting to extort you. And that's what we do with our claim in the Jurist Society. Is our claim is also a performance contract that only requires tacit agreement. So, and it's a vicious performance contract. Continued administration of the estate comes with a hefty, massive bond or the equivalent in their personal property in case of fiduciary malfeasance. And you demand that they give full accounting of the entire estate as far as they have access to, right? Because that's what they're lawfully required to do when the estate's been claimed. And that's under Old English law. They're supposed to give you a full accounting of everything, that's all the transactions that have taken place with the property of the estate, because you're now taking over. And so the contract says that right in the claim. And it says failure to do so, right, results in a forfeit of the bond. I'll show you. It worked once already. It did. So we got, I wonder if they've took it off yet. So this is going to be Colorado. Well, it's actually worked a bunch of times, but once where we can go right like this, because most of the time when it works, the way it works is they leave you alone. That's how it's supposed to work. That's what it's designed for. Well, in this particular instance, it didn't. Judge did not leave him alone, and this is what happened. This is a judge. All right. pull this up for you guys. Share the window. So you guys can see, this is Colorado Secretary of State.gov, coloradosos.gov, right? Guy's name's Walzel Daniel A. So his last name's Walzel, first name Daniel, middle name A. Now, just so you know that he is a judge, how the hell did I spell that? He's got a weird ass name. There it is, Walzel. Colorado Judicial Branch, Daniel Walzel. Okay. So that's him, County Court Judge, Alamosa Combined Court. So let's see what happened to him. Right here. This is a secured party. Brett Andrew Nelson is now, because also part of the claim is a power of attorney. By continuing to administer your estate, they agree to be a trustee of the estate. And they give you power of attorney to sign for them regarding any arbitration or suit against them. So they actually give you irrevocable power of attorney, right? And so, or revocable power of attorney, my bad. Or no, irrevocable, yeah. Special, durable, irrevocable power of attorney. So anyways, they get power, you get power of attorney over them. And they don't even have to sign the arbitration paper. Okay, well, here's what happened. He did this. So we're going to click here to open the document in a separate window. Wow, so now it wants to open here. Let's see if we can go to a bigger window anyway, because it'll be easier to see for everybody.
So what is this situation here? Did someone try to do it?
So someone served, so he got charged. He served the judge with the claim. The judge continued to move forward in the case. He filed a common law action against him, because you can just do that. And people don't realize that's what common law is for. It's for the people to use. So you can just serve them with a trespass on the case, right? And take them through common law process. And then he took them through common law process while the judge still did whatever he wanted. And then he defaulted him at common law, went down and put a common law lien on the guy and through the Secretary of State, and then took him to arbitration, and the judge wouldn't show up to the arbitration. And that's what this is. And the arbitrator ruled against him because he wouldn't even show up. And he did agree to the contract because he kept administering the estate. So look, this is him. So the judge is the debtor. The secured party is the guy he was railroading. And it says, as per Colorado revised statutes, all good chattels, lands, tenements, and real estates of the four debtors are brought forth as lien security as per UCC 9-609A. See public record document, blah, 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 right? So in the amount, debtors owe, and so it's not just against the judge. I forgot to tell you, it's against the judge. I think it was the DA, the cop, and I think the clerk. It was against the four main people that were dealing with the case. And they debtors owe right here $6,898,000 as per the unchallenged negotiable debt instrument, which is the claim. The claim is the negotiable debt instrument that demanded that amount as a bond or the equivalent in personal property. And when he just kept administering the estate that's been claimed on, he forfeited. He forfeited that bond. Yeah. So there's the contractual power of attorney, negotiable debt instrument. So, and then the whole case is right here. Final arbitration award. Now, my claim is quite a bit different than this one, but it's the same. The bones are good. It's the same. And then when you read this one, you'll realize why mine is a little different, because the guy did his thing. So I can't say anything, but there's just a lot of unnecessary stuff in here.
So the judge ended up having to pay?
No, the judge has a lien on all of his whole entire estate. And so 3 other people. Yeah. He can never sell his house or do anything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, without paying this guy. But to be fair, because again, we're we are, so you see this lien is still standing, right? Let's see. The information was accurate, I think. Hold on, let's go back. Well, hold on. Where does it say? Well, the information's current because it's all digital, is my point. So it's current. This is still going on, but the judge decided to railroad him. And so somehow, even though he got a common law lien and he got the $6 million arbitration award against the judge, Colorado was still able to railroad him for doing that and basically said he was doing something like paper terrorism.
Whoa.
Yeah. So he is upriver, but he got his satisfaction, and he was looking at some serious stuff anyway. So I think that's why they were so pissed. But that's why this is so effective for like misdemeanors and stupid low class property, like stuff like drugs and stuff like that. You know, I think he drove off while a nurse was on his car. So the story, if I remember correctly, is his ex was taking his kid to go get, you know, the poke, and he went to the hospital and snatched his kid before it could happen and was like, no, this ain't happening, and was leaving. And the nurse chased him out of the hospital and was like, you know, trying to stop him. And when he got in his car and was driving away, she jumped on the car and he drove off with her on the car. So that's how the whole thing started. Yeah.
Did she get badly injured?
That I don't know, but I do know he took the judge through the whole. If she did, it's her own damn fault. It's his kid.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's wild.
Yeah, and so no, but that's the whole thing. Is it works? People have gotten rid of which I don't particularly agree with, but like credit debt, like with Lowe's or Home Depot or, you know, credit card companies, stuff like that. And it's because it's a negotiable contract. It's a promissory note, or not a promissory. It's a negotiable instrument rather. And which a promissory note is also, but this is just a little different. Negotiable instruments more like a general category of various different types of instruments that are considered negotiable. Check, you know, whatever. But that's what this is. And so, yeah, railroaded. And now that judge tried to take his property out of his name and put it in his mom's name and all that, and all sorts of stuff. There's nothing he can do. There's nothing he can do about it.
That didn't work. Wow.
Yep. $6,898,000.
Damn.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah.
And then he got slapped with some kind of paper terrorism charge or something?
Yeah, well, let me look it up real quick. So what was his name?
Insane, dude.
Drew Nelson. Andrew Nelson is his name. Andrew Nelson. But fuck it, we're at war, dude. That's the whole thing. And that's what I mean by we're territorially occupied, you know. But there are ways you can fight them. You can fight them, you know. Threatening judges in 3 counties is what they said. So I think this is the story.
But how did he threaten them?
That he didn't threaten. He actually did. Because look, here's the fucking lien right here. So he didn't. This is a lie. That's what I'm saying. This is what I mean by territorially occupied. Everything he did was lawfully right.
Exactly.
Everything he did was lawfully correct. So the problem is that we're territorially occupied. So you can read this story is straight bullshit.
Yeah.
20 to 24 counts. So this is actions undermined the integrity of our legal system and endangered the safety of several Coloradans who were doing their job, said State Attorney General Phil Weiser, whose office prized the conviction and sentence advances the rule of law and protects public safety, which is both bullshit because you're not using the rule of law. You're just using rules. That's it. You're not using law at all. If you were, he used law, and that's what happened. He won, right? Because he used law. They're saying we've got to protect our scheme, so we have to do something about this. And that's what the story's saying. And Nelson used anti-government extremist-like tactics, filed fraudulent documents, including powers of attorneys. Oh, it's fraudulent, huh? Then what is this?
Wow.
What's this? What's this that I pulled right off the Colorado Secretary of State's website? That is a current lien for almost $7 million. What is that?
And so they know he's not going to buy this. I mean, like they know that he's aware that he didn't do that, right?
Oh,
so
of course.
Who are they trying to fool with this? I mean,
they're trying to justify it to the public.
Okay.
Right. And because most people don't know what I'm teaching or what he knew or what Zen knows at Vocational Science and Freedom, people just think, oh, yeah, you can't do that. Well, absolutely you can. And look, yeah, he might do, depending on good time or wherever, he'll probably do, I don't know, sometime, but then he still has that lien, and then they can't double jeopardy him. So when he gets out, you better believe he's coming for all that. And what are they going to do to him? He lawfully created a lien through arbitration, which is protected under, I believe it's Title IX, and is basically the entire bedrock of this entire commercial system. Is that so? Is arbitration, because that's technically really what you're doing when you're going into these courts of equity, even though it's not, but it is. It's like you're disputing the violation of a contract or trust arrangement. You know, you're arbitrating. That's why it's so serious, and they can't do anything when an arbitrator awards something. They can just choose not to acknowledge it, but it still exists. It still puts real liens on their property. He still, if he goes to sell his house or will his house to anybody or do anything with his estate without taking care of that's almost $7 million lien, then there's nothing, he can't do it.
So the person who arbitrated is like did they work for the government?
So technically, yeah, well, arbitration is private courts, but so are the ones that pretend to be government. So, yeah.
Right.
But here's the thing though, the courts of arbitration. So I get what you're saying, are they private courts to where they can't be no, arbitration has to be taken seriously and has to be. That's why this lien exists. It's the very bedrock of the system they set up. Right? It's the original Roman law. When cases like arbitration is like one of the most ancient forms of law in the world.
Yeah.
And it's the most ancient Roman law, so it's their stuff. And he did it. He created a negotiable instrument, and then they violated it, and boom. And so, yeah, it's right here. And then, yep, look, this financing statement covers timber to be cut, financing, so you can't even cut trees down on his land. And what this means right here, when it says debtor is the judge, secured party, this is when Edward Mendel House says we'll hold the security interest over them forever. That's what Brett has over Daniel. He has the security interest over him. It means he has a superior interest in the man's entire estate than the man does himself. And that's what they do to us. So all he did to the judge was the same exact thing they do to us.
Yeah.
And they didn't like that very much.
I'd imagine they didn't. Wow.
And I imagine if the charges weren't so serious, that judge would have probably dropped it.
Yeah.
Or then again, he might have been a hardhead. But that's what, most of the time, they don't want to mess with this stuff when you serve it with them. When you serve them with it. They don't want to mess with it. And they're not. And what I do on mine, especially since what they tried to do, or what they are doing to Drew on the claim that we do in the Jurist Society, the bottom of my claim, and I tell all of the jurists to do that in their state too. Each state has something. Like mine is, it basically says like, this is not a threat, but a legal consequence. And that's a Michigan compiled law, right? And then I list the Michigan compiled law, whatever it is, I forget what it is, but it says this is not a threat, but a legal consequence. And what that means is I'm not threatening you that I don't want your money. I'm telling you, if you keep doing this, this is going to be the the result of it as a result of this contract. You know what I mean? That I've served you with.
Yeah, it's like you're the one being threatened.
Right. And so, like, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. And so, yeah, yeah, they just don't want to mess. I sent it to the front of the court. So they tried to jack up my child support, like triple, right? Because they wanted all my personal information. I pay my child support. Like, of course I pay for my kids, but I'm like, you're not going to just triple my child support arbitrarily because I don't want to send you all my personal tax information. And they're like, well, this is just something we do regularly. And I'm like, whatever. So I sent an objection with my whole claim, right?
Yeah.
And when they got on when I was dealing with them, the magistrate did not want to deal with me at all. She was like, she's like, I see you filed an objection. You've got your, I sent them a notice of liability. I sent them so that's part of the administrative process. I sent them a notice of liability. I sent them a copy of the claim that's on the record, and told them I was like, hey, I don't mind paying for my children at all. Of course I'll do that. But if you continue to push this, then I'm taking my entire estate, including everything, out of your control. And I will fight you to the death for this, right? And they realize that. So it's one of those situations where it's not worth the fight for them. And so they're like, okay, we see you sent this notice of liability. We see that you, and what is this other thing? She read what it was. And then she was like, okay. And then she didn't say what it was. Right. And then she's like, so what do you want to do with this? And I said, well, I didn't start this. You guys started. Everything was fine. And I said, you guys started this. And I said, if you keep everything the same, then I'll withdraw that. And she said, if we keep everything the same, you'll take this back? I said, yeah. And she goes, all right, well, it's the court's recommendation that we just keep this the same.
There you go.
Yeah. I was like, all right. And I got the letter and everything. Listen, friend of the court, don't ever do that shit. They try to railroad you as hard as possible. And but I was ready to take it. That was the hill I was going to die on. Like, I'm tired of you fuckers. And so that's the real point of this whole thing. But the ultimate way to truly be out of the system and not have to fight them every single time is to not be dependent on them in any kind of way. And that means don't use your social security number, get rid of all LEI information, and figure out how to live off of the land. And what I mean by that is not like go be a farmer. What I mean by that is, say, people throw away money all the time, right? Or you could go, like, if you know a trade, just go work under the table. Stop using your social security number. Stop participating in the system. And then if they try to come after you for income tax, be like, dude, I don't depend on you for anything, and my estate has been claimed. What are you talking about? But then how are they even going to come at you for, you know what I mean, if you're dealing with cash? But if you need to open up bank accounts and stuff like that, then use your claim. Now your claim works because you don't have to use your social security number to open up a bank account either. And that's the whole thing. But once you get to that point, which should be the ultimate goal, right, then you're truly outside the system. Until then, we've just got to make it not worth the fight for them, is kind of how it works. You know what I mean? And anybody who tells you any different, I don't care who they are, if they try to tell you that you can discharge your debt through the Treasury or any of that other shit, they're lying to you, I promise. I know they are.
Yeah.
Because I know exactly what they're doing, how they're doing it, and what jurisdiction. It's the military jurisdiction in the first place that allows them to set up the commercial jurisdiction and all the equity. So you're militarily occupied. It's just it just is what it is. But hey, look, if you've got a hill to die on, like I did with the front of the court, or like you may with your situation, then you see, hey, listen, if I'm going down, you're going down.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yep. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, it's getting pretty late. I definitely ran this a lot longer.
I gotta get ready for bed here.
thought I was going to. I also have to get ready for bed. So,
Thanks,
everybody,
man.
Dr. Bassett or Forrest, Deb, Randy, thank you guys for coming up on panel with me and listening to me yammer on. And everybody in the chat, always good to have you. I appreciate you guys. And if you guys have any questions or anything, as usual, just shoot me an email, leave a comment, something like that. And I might see you guys tomorrow, even. Honestly, I might do another stream tomorrow night. So, but probably not as long. This one was really long. All right. So, anybody got anything they want to say before we go?
Yep, always a pleasure. Glad you had me on, and nice to kind of officially meet you, Dr. Bass Ackwards.
Yeah, likewise. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I'd actually seen you quite a few times, like in my dad's chat and stuff in my chat. Yeah, but I don't think I've ever spoken with you. It's pretty cool. Appreciate you coming up.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's nice talking to you for sure.
Deb, you got anything, Deb?
No, just thank you, Ryan, again.
Oh, of course. Well, thank you. It's always good. You guys always ask good questions or contribute when I'm maybe not, like your ways of explaining things might be better for some people than mine. So I like that you guys come up here and you know the topic, and that you're able to actually, get in there and be like, no, this is how it works. Like we had with those idiots. So I appreciate that. So, all right. Fozzie made it in the morning, it's his morning, just when we're leaving Peg's place. Here I am, if you're still there. El Piro, anyone else that's still out there, I'll see you guys probably tomorrow. Have a good night.
Good night, guys.